All right, we should be live. Mic should be good. Audio should be good. We're good to go. Let me just get the right website stuff up. All right, yeah, so we're good. Everyone can hear the audio good, right? Sound settings are good. And then let me just message out one last time on the Discord. Or if homie Seal's there, if you could take care of that, because I am... There we go. Yeah, we're good. We're good. What's up, Jason? What's up, Phantom? All right, guys. So we're starting with this week's Voice of All Things, episode 15. And this is after, chapter 1056. And there's been a lot of conversations for sure. So this week, yeah, no film red spoilers. That's one thing. But yeah, going into 1057 is going to be pretty wild. I think yesterday we watched episode 1029 with Uta in it. So we're starting to get some interesting details. Oh, my camera's stuck? All right, hold on. Should be good now. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, so I think for the most part, it's going to be helpful to talk more Shanks coming on. Like this picture we have up right now is from episode 1028. They're putting a lot, or 1029. They're putting a lot of emphasis into Shanks. And so, more people are coming onto the video, the Godfather Shanks video. And it's just, there's a lot to think about. Honestly, I can't read a lot of my comments because people are starting to get into film red stuff. So haven't been able to, interact with my comments so much. But that being said, I think it makes sense if we talk more Shanks. And so, wait, what's that? Are we getting Buster called again?
What's good, everybody? It's Ragnar here.
Okay, so my thing ended up glitching out, but yeah. So we have Ragnar here, guys. He's more of the. Obviously, you guys probably know Ragnar more than me on this stream, even though it's my own stream. But how you doing, Ragnar?
I'm good. It's good to be here again. We spoke, I think, last week on Braga's channel. It was a good conversation. Lots to talk about.
Yeah, so yeah. We had to restrain ourselves in that conversation because we were going off.
Yeah, that was like 4 hours, I think, like 3-4 hours or whatever.
We talked like 4 hours with Brago, and then we like recorded for like an hour and a half or something, right? Or was it like 2 hour recording? I forget.
I think it was a 2 hour recording, and then it was like 2 hours just speaking, off the cuff. I don't know if you also have a problem doing that. I have a problem doing that. I think the last time I streamed with Brago alone, I did the same exact thing, and then Brago, I could tell Brago was like, he had some stuff he had to do, and we would like speak for like 3 hours or whatever. So
yeah, it was a good time. It was good timing though, because it was like Friday night or something. So I'm sure Brago probably would have chilled anyways that night. But yeah, that was a good time. So that day we didn't really get to talk too much about the Godfather Shanks video, but you just put out a Shanks video recently, and I just want to ask before also for the VOD's sake, in terms of movie red spoilers and volume 4 billion, are you still like clear of it, or have you dipped your toes into it?
So I saw your comment, and then I remember I like told you about watching the video. I completely forgot about this, so that's my bad. I mentioned probably like only one very brief spoiler that's in the video, and I think Braga already made a video on it anyways, related to Shanks and some kind of title or whatever.
Yeah.
To get into, but yeah, that's like the only thing I mentioned in the video because it kind of pertained to the topic. But I didn't really cover film red, and there's only like a few things I've been spoiled on. I don't really care if I get spoiled on the movie, so the chat's okay. So I'll look over the chat while we're talking, and if I don't see any spoilers, I might bring something up. But
got you. Wait, you should be modded in the chat already. I figured out how to do that.
Yeah, let me look real quick. Okay, I'm on it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I watched your video, but I stopped when you said like, oh, the spoilers, blah blah. That's when I stopped it. But prior to that, there were some interesting things that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, and there's no better person to talk about Shanks than you, right? So, so that being said, we'll get into that conversation. And so we already have some super chats. So my initial plan is I'm going to talk with VinlanD about some of these the Shanks things I want to talk about, and then around like 5ish we'll get to like any of the accumulated super chats and look at the chat. But that being said, we can just go through some of these earlier chats to see what's said. So I'm just gonna, there's 3 of them. Let's get through these. Mr. Bushido with the €5 super chat, thank you. Shiki is a lurking legend. He's been manipulating Big Mom and Kaido. Carrot will eat the brush fruit and make a fake moon. That is...
So I really like the Shiki idea because it's something that I've actually thought of for a long time, and I don't know if it was you that brought it up during Brago's last stream or conversation we had where you were asking, do I think that other characters that have been written off as movie characters but had a canon element to them would be reintroduced in the story? I do think that Shiki has to play some kind of role. Now, could Shiki be the man that has been marked by flames? Is it possible that he's been marked by flames in any way? I don't know. You'd also have to ask, how would he be marked by fire in what way? So the scar would have to be a result of being burned. We know Luffy got his scar from a Kainu. We know that Shanks got a scar somehow, but it doesn't seem to be fire. It looks more like a claw.
Yeah.
And that kind of pertains to other theories about Blackbeard being some kind of monster secretly. Aokiji got burned by a Kainu as well, but I think 33 or Vil or Eddie had dropped a video recently about maybe Aokiji. I didn't hear all of it, but I think that he went over several possibilities, and maybe Aokiji being
one of the options.
Yeah, one of the options. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And so there's a lot of different people it could be. I like the idea that Shiki would somehow return in some way because the Rocks pirates and all of them are intertwined to some degree. And the fall, we still have Shiki, and then there's the questioning about Miss Bakken and whether or not Miss Bakken has a role that's important to the story. And so for Shiki to come back, Miss Bakken to come back, and all of them to interact in some way, given that Kaido and Big Mom have fallen, we don't know what's happened to Kaido and Big Mom and whether or not they're going to return in the cover story. Maybe Oda has some role to play with them, by the end of the story. Because when you think about, Crocodile, that's another thing we learned in the last chapter, right?
Yeah.
With Crocodile returning, there's a noise in the background, sorry about that. With Crocodile returning, we kind of thought that he'd been written off, but we always had this suspicion that he would return at some point. And lo and behold, we now see Crocodile's come back, right? So it kind of tells you that just because characters are put into cover stories doesn't mean that they're going to, be discarded. I think Oda even said in an interview that he doesn't kill his characters because he something about their dreams, continuing, and he doesn't want dreams to die. So long as you live another day, kind of his smile quote, there's always possibilities, a possibility to achieve your dreams tomorrow. And so Luffy crushes your dreams in the moment, but it doesn't mean you have to stop fighting for your dreams. And so we often overlook the fact that Luffy isn't the only one that has this will to keep on fighting for his dreams. Other characters do too, right? Kaido defeated so many times, but he has a dream, whatever that is, and he hasn't yet achieved it, obviously, because Luffy beat him. Big Mom similarly, right, still has her dream. Luffy humiliated her, but she's still chasing after him. A lot of characters still have their dreams that they're pursuing even when they get beat by Luffy. And so Crocodile's back, and he's probably still going after whatever it is that he wants. So, so Shiki coming back would make sense to me.
It's really interesting because Shiki would be like this heavy powerhouse, right? And so some way or another, Oda would have to deal with bringing such a powerful character in the mix. But that brings up Mr. Bushido's second super chat, which is, why is Uta and Shiki canon? What is Oda planning, right? And like you were saying with like the carrying of dreams and that sort, it kind of it'd be interesting to see more of these players that were involved, like during the Rocks era, during Roger's era, that all of those dreams, how many were there, and the presentation of all the dreams present, probably when Luffy, you know, discovers Laugh Tale or understands like the Void Sentry, that kind of thing. Because, you know, Luffy's dream apparently is like inherited or one way or another parallels Roger and probably the previous Joy Boy. So then it's kind of like, are there other dreams or is it just this one? And then like, is the D Clan like, you know, a unimind kind of thing, or is it like, where is there like a prevalent dream, or is there competing dreams, or is there like a spectrum of dreams? I think like when you're talking about like, you know, dreams dying, when Luffy beats somebody and a dream gets crushed but not necessarily like deleted in that way, right? I think of Bellamy. Bellamy's fight was essentially he was killed off as a pirate and now he's a dyer. He's a professional dyer in the story where he makes pirate flags. And so to me, when I read that story, it was like, you know, he wanted to die at the hands of somebody who would, you know, who would defeat his prior dream, and then by being defeated he could turn a new leaf essentially and then become something else, right? So in that regard, Bellamy was just like, you know, kill this dream so that I can, you know, now pursue a different dream. And it's kind of interesting in that line, because that's probably like one of the only, not the only times, but a situation where a dream does die essentially. And it was like, is it a dream or is it a nightmare?
And here's the other thing, right? So many of us expected similar to that, because Luffy, you know, now has an ally out of Bellamy in a way. And just one quick point would be, you know, I'm really expecting Bellamy to paint a bunch of Straw Hat flags, you know, towards the end for the final war or whatever. I think that's when he really makes his comeback, and then he has all these ships, you know, waving Luffy's Straw Hat flag on them as he declares war on the world government, right, and goes after them. That's going to be epic. I think that might happen. But the point I was going to make is, you know, Blackbeard with Moria. So many people, right, had the theories that Moria is going to show up because of his dream and getting vengeance on Kaido and all that stuff, right?
Right.
That's what people are thinking. You know, an undead army of zombies, and they'll finally be able to defeat Kaido, become Pirate King or whatever. And now we see that Luffy did it. So what is Moria's purpose? Did Blackbeard kill Moria? Or did Moria, like you mentioned about killing dreams and then a new dream being born, right, out of that? Has Moria, you know, found a different direction in a way, right? Like, does he have a new dream now?
Oh, like after being beaten by Luffy?
Yeah, but what would that new dream be? You know, Absalom apparently dead. You know, Kaido defeated. So what does Moria want? What is his relevance, right? Bellamy, right? Bellamy has a new purpose. Does Moria have a new purpose? Doflamingo, I think, and this is something that I've been thinking about, the same way that Buggy, when you see that, and we talked about this briefly in Brago's stream, how, you know, Buggy has Mihawk and I think Crocodile next to him, right? When Roger dies, but to either side, the left and the right side, you see Moria and Doflamingo as kind of outcasts, right? And those two people were actually kind of real enemies to Luffy and have never helped him in any way, unlike Mihawk or Crocodile. Yeah. And so, because you know, Crocodile I think was helping him and pull down a little bit, even though he didn't really want to. But you have Doflamingo and Moria that are actually villains to him, right? Not just antagonists that might, you know, they're not going to have a positive. They're not going to have like their role in the story switch to, you know, redemption. Whereas I think Crocodile might have some room for it, maybe depending on what his past is, potentially, right? And you know, given his history with Whitebeard as well. And so with Doflamingo and Moria, since Buggy got Mihawk and Crocodile, is it possible that since Blackbeard's going for Moria, that Blackbeard also goes for Doflamingo? He's already been to Impel Down. He broke in very easily when he was much weaker. There's nobody in Impel Down that can stop him. He has people that used to be in that prison that should have some understanding of it, right? It would be very easy for him to show up there and, you know, break out Doflamingo. Although I know some people are wondering, I don't know if somebody had tweeted this out where it came from. I saw going around that maybe Shanks teams up with Doflamingo. I don't really see why that would happen, but who knows, right? Yeah,
Shanks and Doflamingo is an interesting mix-up. I was thinking it'd be like Doflamingo, because a lot of people were saying Doflamingo with the Cross Guild because of the bounty system, like the way it was similar to Doflamingo style. And I was thinking about it low-key, like Doflamingo fighting Buggy would essentially kind of be similar to like Mihawk fighting Buggy, where essentially Buggy can kind of just separate out. Most of most of Doflamingo's attacks are like slashing attacks, essentially, right? So kind of, it's in your idea where it's Blackbeard and Doflamingo, are you saying that Doflamingo would be the 10th Titanic captain?
Well, also because, that's the thing. Like, I think that could either be. So the options for Blackbeard's 10th Titanic captain would be, for me. Well, did we see Aokiji listed on there? Was Aokiji ever listed on there as a captain yet?
Yeah,
No?
yeah. I think a few people have ideas. Oh, well, not like.
Oh yeah, on the road to Laughtail, when they showed all of the Titanic captains and they had number 10 with a question mark.
Oh,
was
yeah.
Was Aokiji listed as any of the 10
No,
already?
no,
Or no?
no, he wasn't.
Okay, so Aokiji might be an option that's just revealed. Like, here's my 10th Titanic captain. It might be Aokiji. It might be Caribou, as we know from the recent chapters, who he's referring to about giving information to. It could be Doflamingo, or it could be Moria, or it could be Shiki. Although, Shiki would make sense given his old age, right? So it'd be a little bit weaker, maybe. But I'm not really sure about that.
Except his fruit is broken.
yeah, his fruit's kind of broken. And we don't even know if he has forget Awakenings. I don't even care about Awakenings anymore because I don't even know when Oda's going to use them consistently.
Zoan Awakenings for sure is like.
I don't know what. Yeah, I do not know what happened with that in an arc.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the things that you can't excuse. Yeah,
it's also kind of weird in the Road to Laughtail thing. It almost makes it sound like a Zoan Awakening is a nerf because it said like the Zoan will, like the animal, takes over, and so like the personality becomes like duller or something. And that's not exactly like the most like the best thing for fighting.
So one of the things, and then this is a trope that's often used in various stories, we can call it that, is when you're taken over by whether it's a demon or whether it's a beast within or whatever, you might lose some of your intellect.
Yeah,
you replace it with with going berserk, and you have this power unleashed. And I think a lot of people were kind of expecting that for Kaido, where he might lose some of his critical thinking skills or whatever, but he's just going to be going crazy, and the bloodlust that was rumored to have destroyed Moria and all this stuff would have come out. That's kind of what it was for me. I think there was a lot of room for Oda to do that. For example, for King the Wildfire, just give him one more chapter, have him awaken, right, and then have Zoro, have an epic moment at the end or whatever it is that's different. I mean, he already had a good moment, so the end will make it great. But
do you think we're gonna get King and Kaido coming back in the story?
That's the thing. Like, I don't know. I think that Oda has something planned for the final war. I don't know if it's going to be like Naruto level where all these characters came back, but it does seem as if Oda doesn't want them to die yet because he wants to have the biggest war and maybe the biggest party, right, in One Piece. Yeah. So a lot of the people on the protagonist or good guy side, he wants them to be there to party with Luffy, right? Biggest party ever thrown. You think about the creativity in manga stories. A lot of manga are defined by moments that have never really been done before. I know people have said that there are wars out there that are bigger than what happened in Naruto, but for most people, when they think of very big wars, they imagine, what is it, the fourth Shinobi War, right? Like, yeah, all those characters and everything. They think of that immediately. And there might be others that are bigger, but in terms of popularity, that's most popularized. Right. So you think about what Dragon Ball's done, that's iconic, that other series have not been able to recreate. And so with One Piece, I think Oda wants to leave as a lasting legacy, and this is, I think, one of Arthur's, Library of Horror's greatest theories, is a giant party. I don't think there's ever been a series ever written, whether it's manga, whether it's TVs or anime, whether it's just regular fiction or books or whatever. I don't think there's ever been a series where the character literally had a giant party with every character that's on the good guy's side, at least, at the end of the story, and that's what it's been building up to. And that being like brilliant. The goal and climax of the story. Yeah, and you'll never forget it because it will be just like I put that on Twitter. That Luffy's smile is the most iconic smile, or the Will of D smile, but especially Luffy's smile, right, or Roger's smile, the most iconic smile, in my opinion, ever drawn in fiction, right? It's just like you see it and you're like, oh yeah, that's the Will of D smile, right?
Yeah,
like that's how a real person dies, with a smile like that. And so, beyond that, we have the Straw Hat, and now we don't look at Straw Hats the same way. You see a Straw Hat, you immediately think of Luffy and everything. And when we find out more significance behind the hat, it's going to, mean even more to us when we see one of those in real life.
For sure.
I'm sure there are other things. I'm sure there are other things as well, but So a giant party is definitely going to be one of the things, if that's what happens, that we remember One Piece by, so.
Yeah, I mean, were you a part of the Shanks summit that Cole had? Did you come in towards the end, or I forget?
No, I didn't even realize that was going on, because the Reverie chat part, it has so many people talking.
Yeah.
That when I'm scrolling through, I don't see things, so I just didn't see. I saw you guys saying, "Oh yeah, it was fun, it was a good time." I'm like, "Oh man, I missed it."
Yeah, I was just like, wait, how did VinlanD miss the Shanks summit? But we have Randy in the chat. What's up, Randy? So going back on the 10th Titanic captain thing, something Randy brought up in his stream, just before we get back to what I want to talk about, the Straw Hat. It was just there's two options for that 10th Titanic captain, and one was Rouge and the other one was Caribou. But the thing is, Randy brought up a really interesting point that I think you might find interesting, but Caribou might be talking about Crocodile as like that certain somebody, and the reason, like a huge reason, is because I don't know if you remember Baroque Works. There was a few numbered agents that we didn't get to meet, and one of them was Mr. 10. Mr. 10 wasn't ever shown, but Oda drew a sketch art for Mr. 10. And
okay, can you put it up on the screen?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up on the screen, and it looks pretty much like Caribou. Hold on, I googled the wrong thing. Let me see if I can get the picture. It's pretty. I was like, where's Randy going with this? And then the picture came up. I was like, yo, wait, this actually could be Caribou. I don't know if you can see it on the screen right now. It's a little blurry on this one. Let's see if the One Piece wiki is better. I was just like mind blown, like the fact that
Oh no, Randy's a god, bro. Like I just saw the picture just now.
Yeah, you saw it. It looks literally like Caribou.
Bring it up. That's crazy. Randy somehow, I don't know. I think Randy works in the film industry. He has some special access to.
Yeah, he was talking to Tekking about it, and then like at first it was like people brought up Mr. 6 on my stream, but then then Randy was walking us towards Mr. 10, and I was like, whoa, that's wild. So then
it was Randy, and his other thing, Crocodile has a devil fruit that's related to sand, and it kind of turns into mud a little bit when it gets wet. Yeah, and then you have Caribou, who has basically mud, wet sand, or wet dirt. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I was thinking, I made a Caribou video, and I was saying like Caribou's power is so weird, and when you kind of think about it, like as a Logia, he's plenty strong, but underneath Crocodile would kind of beat that, because Swamp is like moisture, I'm assuming. So then Crocodile absorbs moisture. It's pretty hard counter for him in a great like you wouldn't want to give a devil fruit user underneath you a stronger devil fruit. So
Crocodile is kind of weird like that, wherein his weakness is also he can also counter it, right? So it's interesting like that, wherein Luffy got blood on him or water on him, and then he was able to hurt him. So I would imagine that wet mud could also dampen or moisten your sand, and so. But yeah, like you point out, he's probably a lot stronger now, so he'd be able to counter it. But yeah, that's crazy. That looks just like Caribou, but
yeah, it's just like a pre-time skip version of Caribou. It's like
now the one question that I would have is, was Randy implying that Caribou has always been Mr. 10, or is he like a recent member, a recent addition? Did Crocodile like replace his Baroque Works members, or because there's still Mr. 1, right? They're still going about doing their thing. Yeah, I imagine. I don't remember everything from the story. I don't know if Baroque Works was ended, or if it was just disbanded temporarily because they all got imprisoned. Did Crocodile? I'm sure when we see Buggy's organization again, we're gonna see one faction of Baroque Works. Mihawk is a one-man army with obviously the little ghost girl.
Perona.
Perona, yeah. I think Mihawk would also be great for keeping people in line, whereas Buggy can't do it himself. But we have Mihawk who can, if you step out of line for whatever reason, he's going to back up Buggy.
So
and be like kind of like the muscle.
yeah.
Behind
I
a lot of
think
stuff.
a lot of people are thinking like I think this is like perpetuated by Randy especially. It's like Crocodile being the brain, Buggy I would say is like the face of the organization, and then Mihawk would be like the hard hand muscle, like for sure. But hold on, okay, so in terms of Mr. 10 thing, I don't know if he went too in detail about the ways it can manifest, but I think at the minimum this was like a sketch art that Oda had for Mr. 10. So whether this was the original Mr. 10 or this was a character that Oda had designed from Baroque's works time, I don't think it necessarily, I think the sketch art alone is kind of like, yo, this could actually be Caribou's original intention of like involvement, and Oda kind of just was like scrap the idea, but then
Well, yeah,
used
because
it.
Zoro, and I actually mentioned this in a video that Zoro was originally intended, I think, to be a buggy pirate. Do you remember that? Yeah, like if you type in Zoro buggy pirate.
I know about
Google.
Puggy. Do you know about Puggy?
Oh, buggy, not puggy.
No,
Puggy.
I know that, but I know about Puggy. Have you heard about Puggy?
Puggy. Well, look, so yeah, let me. Are you typing it right now?
Yeah, Zoro. You said Zoro Buggy Pirates.
Yeah, Zoro buggy pirate.
Okay.
And there's like a picture of Zoro buggy. Yeah, if you can see the image too. Like if you go to it's under Zoro miscellaneous, and so there's like a picture of Zoro with the buggy pirates, and yeah, apparently it was supposed to have originally been.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so it's on the wiki. Go to Zoro, go to the wiki, and go to miscellaneous.
Yeah, so just type in Zoro buggy pirate, and then you'll see an image that will take you to the miscellaneous. Yeah, and it shows it. So it says a sketch. It says a sketch of Buggy's crew showing Zoro as a crew member. So yeah, so it says early concepts. So under this section of Roronoa Zoro miscellaneous, it says originally Zoro was planned by Oda to be the bodyguard of Buggy. A picture of an incarnation of him and Buggy's crew was then later released in Volume 3, along with another picture of Buggy's crew. Now, actually, I don't know if I mentioned this in a video yet, because I have a lot of scripts that I've written completely. I just haven't had time to turn them into videos yet. This might pertain, maybe I did. Maybe I made a video on it. I just don't remember. It might be on my channel. Maybe somebody in the chat remembers it. But I might have another script that I've been working on. I have 2 different Zoro videos that are like 20 minutes long, and I've been working on them for the last half year or whatever.
I have a few of those too.
Yeah. I hate when that happens. I have DMs full of messages to myself. I have some sticky notes around my place. Ideas that I probably will never get to, or that might be irrelevant now that Wano's over. I gotta look and re-edit it. But yeah, it says that Zoro was supposed to have been a buggy pirate. And my presumption was that Luffy was supposed to maybe have, kind of similar to Shanks, meeting Whitebeard and saying, hey, Marco, join my crew. Now that we know Buggy is an emperor, the first emperor that Luffy technically fought and defeated.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting if Luffy was supposed to have recruited Zoro akin to Marco the Phoenix, like Shanks, right? Recruited Zoro from Buggy's crew. And be like, hey, Zoro, join my crew. But instead, he found Zoro captured.
So like essentially going through the Yonko's crews and taking like one element from each one. That'd be interesting. Yeah. Dang, this is throwing me through a loop. I had no idea about Zoro, and what? That's so crazy. Yo, Oda loves Buggy. So earlier I mentioned Puggy, so I don't know if you knew this.
Oh wait, and now on top of that part, so instead of Zoro now being the right hand of Buggy, he's replaced by Mihawk. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like now today we have Mihawk in the crew instead of Zoro. So
this is interesting. And so then in the original storyline, it could have been a world where Zoro leaves and then he has to fight his old crew, and then that old crew contains Mihawk. That would have been crazy. Oh my goodness. This is exciting. So yeah,
when it comes down to old ideas, that's kind of where this came from, right?
Yeah.
Old designs and old intentions. Maybe Caribou was supposed to have been Mr. 10, and Oda changed his mind and decided not to make him. Mr.
Yeah,
10.
and then you
So
know it might be like that blueprint for that character might be.
yeah, and somebody else became Mr. 10. But here's the other thing. I think, and maybe Randy pointed this out, Caribou has an X on his chest, right?
Yeah,
Similar to Luffy's X. And X often stands for 10 as a numeral, right? Like
I
the
think
Roman
someone
numeral.
brought it up in the stream that it could mean the 10
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
Titanic captain too. It's, oh man, Caribou's such an interesting character. Did you always think that Caribou would have been as important as he's feeling right now?
I think after Fishman Island. So when we meet him on, what is it? Is it Saboti, I think, right? When they come back from the time skip.
Yep,
when we
the
meet
first
Caribou?
Logia introduced in the time skip.
Yeah, was that on Saboti? I can't remember.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
was it Fishman?
Yep.
Yeah. I know. I think he was like a kind of like a goof character, but it's definitely one of those characters akin to Buggy where Oda has something big planned for him. You know, he's collecting all this information on the ancient weapons, and you just have to wonder because Luffy doesn't want Pluton. Obviously, he has a copy of the blueprints, and that's going to be Frankie's big role in the story. It's a callback to, you know, don't be afraid to create something that can destroy the world, right? Because you can't blame your creation. It's about the intention of the person using it. You know, it's kind of like one of those political arguments where people like to say that, you know, people kill people, not guns or whatever, right? Not to get into that stuff, but yeah. You know, that's kind of how what Oda's implying with Frankie. You know, it's not the creation, it's the person behind the ship or weapon that you design. So,
Right.
you know, that's why Frankie's big role in the story. And maybe even to take us back to the Void Century, where the people that originally designed Pluton, maybe his ancient family, right, or people related to him, you know, they used the ancient weapons in a proper way, and they were not really meant to destroy the world. And so Frankie will kind of return it to that. But yeah, I'm wondering who the ancient weapons are for. Luffy doesn't want Pluton. Luffy has left Shirahoshi. I would imagine that no one's going to be able to control Shirahoshi, right? And so Luffy's probably going to end up with Shirahoshi. I know people have said that maybe the world government will have Uranus or somebody else will, and that one of the pirates, probably Blackbeard. I think Morgan mentioned that in a recent video, that Blackbeard will get Pluton. You know, so
To balance out like if
yeah,
Luffy
different
has
factions.
Poseidon, then
Yeah, so good pirates, evil pirates, and then world government may be a neutral force, right? Where
Right.
we think they're bad, but they might have done some good things against evil pirates in the past is kind of the argument. So
do you have any ideas on Pluton now that we're post like I think most of the Zunisha ideas about him and you brought this up in your video too, that like now that and I think in the last conversation that we had that like, you know, what are we saying about Pluton now that it was similar to Shirahoshi's or Zunisha to Momo is similar to Shirahoshi to the Sea Kings, right? And so
yeah.
if Zunisha is not Pluton and isn't one of the ancient weapons, then one, what is that relationship around Momo and Shirahoshi? But then also, do you have any ideas like with Pluton?
That is kind of interesting because now we're kind of going down a path where Oda had us believing one thing, and now it seems like there's something more going on here, right? And so Momonosuke has a power very similar to Shirahoshi, where we think that they're vessels of an ancient power and they can control, you know, something beyond themselves that is actually the power that they have, right? So Shirahoshi has the Sea Kings. We thought Momonosuke was an ancient weapon that could control an elephant or elephants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now maybe Momonosuke is Uranus and he can control, you know, land animals or animals that are not underwater. Or maybe all of them can control any creature, right? Can you imagine if that power, because we know Shirahoshi only used her power on the Sea Kings, what if her power can also work on, you know, Zunisha or other creatures? What if their power is one that is simply tied to the voice of all things, right? Tied to, as I mentioned in my video, you know, something that overlaps in a way with being kingly, right? Like conquerors is a power that's associated with kings. And there seems to be one true king that you have to rise above, and then, you know, you have the empty throne and everything. And so ultimately there is a king in the past maybe that was the greatest king, and he had domain over all of these ancient weapons, which is my belief about Joy Boy. You know, I believe that, you know, after Luffy fell into the water, he did awaken a similar power to Momonosuke. It might be possible in the end that Luffy can also speak and now give commands to Zunisha. Whereas, you know, kind of like a king, you know, disseminating responsibilities and roles to different people. Maybe there's a king in the past that had 3 different subjects, right? Had one person for Uranus, one person for Pluton, one person for Poseidon, right?
Mhm.
And basically said, while he could control them all, he's obviously not going to be commanding them all at once. Others can do that for him, but it's a similar power that they all have. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Luffy at the end can actually, not just hear, but also speak. But that's all it really is, right? Like Luffy says on Zou, he says he can hear the voice, but he can't speak to it.
Right.
Momonosuke could both hear and speak to the voice.
It's
But
also
now
interesting because from with the Luffy situation, I'm kind of on the fence about it still a little bit, but to me it didn't really seem like Luffy could hear Zunisha to the point where like he could understand it, because Momo was the one who's like seeing Zunisha's memories, but Luffy didn't like understand like the punishment thing or the walking thing, and that was apparently being communicated by Zunisha but not necessarily understood by Luffy. And I think we get like an example of that. I forget if it's either Luffy or Roger, but I think it's probably I forget if it's like when Odin was on Zunisha, it was like he could feel a presence. It was like an eerie feeling, but he couldn't hear, like understand Zunisha, right? And I feel like there was like degrees of that where it's like you can be aware of the presence, you can understand them, and then you can speak to them. And so like I think Luffy falls in the middle. In that example, Odin might be at the lower rung there, and then Momo can speak and hear to Zunisha.
Where do you think Luffy would fall now? Because we haven't really seen Luffy do anything with his, he's awakened now. Or not awakened, he awakened a new power, right? Clearly that Oda kind of just moved beyond, right? We don't really know even what its relevance for. I mean, beyond what I mentioned in my video that recently dropped about the power to conquer all things, as well as a voice that is attributed in a filler scene in the anime where Dr. Hurluk, and this actually goes back to, he's one that brought up the cherry blossoms and Rio and flowers, and I think did you tweet that out on Twitter, or you were questioning if they had importance? Was that Joe Three Skulls too? It might have been somebody else.
I think there's a few people who brought that up. Yeah.
And so the connection to Haki, but Dr. Hurluk had mentioned the miracle water, and people think about that with Roger and him enduring longer than he should, and I connect that to his spirit, his conquering spirit. And so Dr. Hurluk says in the filler scene for the anime, for those that have seen my videos, because I mentioned it several times now, he says a voice that tears the sky asunder. So a voice that splits the skies. That was emphasized heavily, with Luffy's fight versus Kaido. We've seen it in the past where, other characters, but they emphasize a voice doing it, right? Not just, your voice is tied in a way to your spirit. And so the voice of all things, the breath of all things, I said this before, the shared voice that all things have is the spirit. People often say that if you ever met aliens, right, that we communicate mathematically. We wouldn't use, mathematics is considered a universal language, where you'd be able to figure certain things out, right? Certain codes, certain patterns, and then you be able to register what is being communicated to you over time. But beyond math, you could argue, is a spiritual connection. And so what Oda seems to be implying in his story is the voice and breath of all things, the voice of everything, both living, non-living, and animate, right, is the spirit, right? The spirit is a collective voice, and then the breath of all things, the thing that makes us all alive, whether living, inanimate, or inanimate, is the spirit. So everything in Oda's world is spirit and can be bent, right, by somebody with a powerful spirit. And so it might actually tie into your theory about elemental Haki and all kinds of stuff, and a person that can actually conquer all things, because you can conquer everything in this world.
Right.
The ultimate conqueror would be able to do that, is basically what my video is about. But that's what I think about with Luffy, falling to the water, awakening, and his voice reaching everybody on Onigashima telepathically, his voice expanding, because it's paralleled again with Conquerors, as is mentioned in the filler scene with Dr. Hurluk, about a voice that can split the sky. We know that Advanced Conqueror splits the sky. Luffy split the sky when he came back up after his voice expanded, right? And the splitting sky moment with Kaido only happens after Luffy's voice of all things reaches another level. His voice, therefore, reaching higher heights, you could say. And this is also coupled with Luffy's Conquerors entering an advanced stage, right?
Do
And
you
so
view Voice of All Things as like a separate power, or is it?
that's the thing, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not
Okay,
sure.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
because
it's
there seems to be an overlap, in
yeah,
terms of what the Philistine says is that your voice is tied in a way. What the Philistine basically says, your voice is tied in a way to the spirit, and the stronger one's spirit is, the stronger their voice is, and that kind of ties back into Mihawk saying the power to have people follow you, to bring them towards you or whatever. Ivankov, which is often overlooked, also echoed Mihawk's words in relation to Dragon having the Revolutionary Army and all of them following him. Ivankov says similar to Mihawk about Luffy, he has it too, like Dragon, right?
the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Was
yeah,
like,
yeah, the power to get people to follow you. And so, it seems to be tied to a voice that can inspire. And we do see that when we're out, Dragon appears, the skies do change, it could be linked to him. But as soon as Dragon dies, we also see clouds shift.
Right.
And it's after his voice, reaches the people below, and he inspires them all to just go out there and do what they have to do. So I do think Oda is trying to suggest, just to wrap up the point, that conquerors and a voice, just as we see with Shanks, we don't know how his voice reached Green Bull, but he uses his advanced conquerors, and his voice reaches the island. His presence, consumes Green Bull, and Green Bull alone can hear his voice, and he's literally speaking on the New Age, a callback, right? New Age, New Era, to when Shanks split the sky, right? Speaking of the New Era versus Whitebeard. So again,
and that example is important too, because like if that were Voice of All Things, well, right next to Green Bull in that situation was Momo, the person who has heard Zunisha, has Voice of All Things. Luffy is nearby enough where he could feel that thing, and Yamato's there, she has Conquerors. So like one way or another, there's lots of examples of how there's people who could have heard if it was like a broad spectrum announcement, but it seemed very, very targeted to just
and that's why the thing is so strange, is because when Luffy fell in the water, we still don't know how the Heart Pirates in the submarine could hear Luffy. Now, people question if the water somehow serves as a medium for Luffy's voice to just have happened to travel to them. That's the only explanation I can think of, that somehow the water was a medium for his spirit or whatever to reach them. Other than that, because Luffy seemed to just be targeting Momonosuke, right? Because both of them could hear the voice or whatever, but somehow the Heart Pirates could hear it as well. It's very convoluted. There's so many things we don't yet know in the story. That's why there seems to be a lot of discrepancies here.
So there
does seem to be
the way I explained that, and this is like, so through observation Haki, I have a video called Mind Rope, essentially. So mantra was how Oda introduced us to observation Haki, and that translates very like literally to mind rope. And so the way I've been interpreting observation Haki is kind of like an empathy link. And I don't know if we talked about that in the conversation with Brago, but more or less it's like, the more you fight. Oh no, this is with Cole. Like, it's the trope where it's like, you fight with somebody and you learn about them, you learn through the fight, through the battle, and that essentially strengthens this mind rope. And we see that through Katakuri and Luffy, where over the course of the fight they went from enemies to two individuals that really respected each other, and the way their fight went was primarily driven through peak levels of observation Haki. They had to observe each other to the point where they could see each other's futures. And so the way I was talking about observation Haki is it's kind of like attaching a mind rope to somebody and sensing their presence. So like when Rayleigh went to Ruskaina, he essentially can sense all the mind ropes to all these like creatures and gauge their powers, what they are, their spirits, and all that way, right? And we know, like when Zoro did Breath of All Things, everything has a sort of a spirit. When Sabo was breaking Dressrosa's Coliseum, for example, he's like sensing for the core of the stadium, and it's very, very like emphasized what he's looking for to destroy the core of that stadium. And so the way I see the Shanks situation with Green Bull is that it's essentially him attaching a mind rope, and then if you have conquerors on top of that, then you can use that to influence other people. And so that's the example where you get like you can knock people out, or you can speak to them.
And your voice can kind of reach them that way.
Exactly.
So in a way, maybe underwater, this is the thing, there's a lot of vagueness at times. Again, we don't fully know what the voice of all things is. Maybe it's some rare version of observation that only certain people can use, right? Kings or whatever. But approximate to a mind rope, yeah, it would make sense then if Luffy fell in the water and all of his Haki abilities somehow improved, right, upon his recovering, wherein you know even his observation, not just his armament Haki or conquerors, everything about him expanded, right? And so his observation was able to reach out even underwater to the Heart Pirates, right, and connect with their minds so they could hear him. So that's interesting. I mean, it's definitely a possibility because we haven't. Because I mean, even I think what you're alluding to is we haven't seen Roger or anybody else do what Luffy did, right? So an explanation would be a different type of observation, wherein he can now speak to you directly.
Yeah,
so it could be separate. Yeah,
and so another thing that I want to ask you, the way you're describing Conquerors of the voice, it's very. That I have a Conquerors Haki video coming out that's literally about that it's like if you boil Conquerors down, it's like the ability to command, like no matter what the situation is, even if it's like an aggression or a calming thing, it's like your presence is able to command a certain behavior out of people. And obviously there's degrees to that, because you can have that kind of presence just through fear, right? Like if you're like Weevil or something, maybe he's not a conqueror's, but like his presence, his strength, his destruction and history, if he were to show up somewhere and he were to with the status of a warlord thing, people would listen, right? But that's separate. That's not like
it's different. It's different than intimidation. Yeah,
right.
Conqueror literally it overwhelms you, right, with the reality that another person is above you spiritually.
Yeah,
right?
and
kind of like reality.
So actually, that's an important thing. Do you think Conquerors is only going to be for intimidation, or, for example?
No. So so my
no.
Sorry. Yeah. My opinion is that, and this is probably one of my favorite videos I made, is the earliest version of the Power to Conquer All Things is a scene from Impel Down, where we first have Ivankov questioning how it's possible that Luffy survived, right? And this, you can find this video on the channel as well. And this is another video called I don't know if I call it the Power to Conquer All Things, but I think it's Advanced Conquerors. Like the true purpose of Advanced Conquerors in the story, I always believed was not going to be just mixing Haki together, but just as there's an advanced level of armament with Rio, and then there's future sight for observation, Conquerors will have another level to it. And I think that is the power to conquer anything at all, right? To conquer even life and death, even yourself, the world around you. And so people need to understand the word conqueror can have many meanings. What does it mean to conquer something, right? To defeat your enemies, how would you define an enemy? Can we extrapolate from that to suggest that in a singular moment that your enemy could be not just a person, but an action? So, for example, somebody shoots a beam at you, right? You can conquer that beam that shot at you. It's actually in a video game I think they put out where it shows Luffy basically using conquerors as a barrier to basically break down whatever's thrown at him, whether it's, fire fist or anything. That they kind of spoil a lot of stuff in the video games, Burning Blood. But beyond that, I thought that conquerors can overcome death, and so your death in that instance would be your enemy, and you want to conquer death. Do you want to conquer pain? We see that with Odin's literally standing in magma, and he's overcoming magma. Goldie Roger, right, dying from incurable disease. Perfectly fine. Crocus says, you got 1 year left to live. People are shocked by it because they're looking at him like he looked fine. We see that's revealed in the anime, even though it was hinted at in the manga. They go more into it in the anime because it made it more clear. We see that Roger was gravely ill, coughing up blood, had some kind of serious disease. I'm sure will be revealed down the road.
Yeah.
But when he opened that door, right, perfectly fine. He was able to, in that moment, conquer his illness and put on a perfectly fine demeanor. And so I do believe that the spirit has the ability in Oda's story to overcome anything. And that's why Conqueror's Haki is my favorite ability, because, that willpower is so relatable. You don't need to be able to fly. You don't need to have ice or anything. You just need to have the determination, the drive to, conquer whatever you're going through. And we see that in real life. There are real life examples of people that display a conquering spirit that's, blows human minds. You have scientists, studying these people. How is it they can do this? You have some people that will lie on a bed full of nails or whatever, or they'll go into into an ice bath and they'll be perfectly fine.
Right.
And that's kind of what Oda's touching on. And so the last example I'll give, ParVision, is Whitebeard on Marineford. And this actually, I was so happy when I saw this because it confirms that I brought up about Whitebeard on Marineford. when he turns red, and it kind of looks like, the Gear Second thing.
Yeah.
And it he was struggling to use Conquerors on Marineford. I believe in that instance that he conquered death. He was dying because he was shot by what's his name? He was dying because he was what was it against? Akainu or was it Blackbeard? I think it was Blackbeard, right? He did that against. It was glowing red. He's glowing red.
Yeah, it was against Blackbeard. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he was about to finish off Blackbeard, and then I think Blackbeard shoots him, right, and stops him from hitting him, or did he hit him first? Whatever happened, he.
I think it was like the crew just all started firing at him essentially.
Yeah. And then he basically used a mode that looked like Gear Second, but it was kind of Conquerors. So remember when Kaido says, "Oh yeah, you died" or whatever. Luffy came back. We saw that explosion of Conquerors Haki.
Yeah.
Even though he awakened, we also saw Conquerors attached to him coming back. Right.
Right.
We also see again that Luffy's life force seems to be tied to him using Gear 5. Right. It's probably the most extreme gear in terms of hurting his life expectancy. And we see that it's fading when he's fighting Kaido, and Kaido says to him, you're fading away, or whatever he says to him. And then Luffy's like, struggling to keep his form. And then he uses not just Gear Second, he releases another blast of Conquerors, and he's probably glowing red again, the same exact thing as Whitebeard on Marineford. And so I do think that Conquerors, Advanced Conquerors has other abilities, the power to conquer just about anything, and that will be tapped into more by Luffy towards the end of the story.
So I really like that, because in your version of Conqueror's Haki, like, I think multiple things that I see with Conqueror's Haki showing up in the story is very plausible. Like okay, so one thing with Conqueror's Haki is I've been playing around with this idea that, like, I think that, like, especially when we see Conqueror's Haki, and clearly you watch the anime to see some scenes and the way they portray some things in a little more with a little bit more clarity. But when we see Conqueror's Haki, it's kind of like air bubbles almost. Like, it's like they have their own almost like atmosphere, if that makes sense. And so the way I was kind of, and this is, I don't bring this up in the Conqueror's Haki video, so to say. It's more just like kind of like a feeling when I think about, like, we're doing with sun gods, and Blackbeard has the black hole. Blackbeard says, like, darkness has its own gravity, and I feel like that gravity part is really important, because, like, for example, when Fujitora, his fruit is essentially gravity, and then the name of it is the same sound effect that Oda uses for when someone drops from Conquerors. So it's the thud fruit in the Road to Laughdale, which is the same, I'm pretty sure it's the same sound of, like, like Nika's grin, and that's the sound effects he's been using now for smiles. The same sound effect for when someone drops from Conqueror's Haki is thud, and then that's with that. And so it's like Conqueror's Haki and gravity feels like this really important, like, concept. And I was thinking about how, like, if you were to think about planets or celestial bodies, there are certain planets that would be claimed as conquerors because they have enough gravity to have moons, for example, or have their own, like, orbit and relying on their own gravitational pull. And then when you kind of think about gravity, the concept of it gravitating towards somebody like Luffy, right? Like, that's what Mihawk said, like, people just naturally gravitate towards Luffy. And so then I was, like, thinking, like, are we gonna see a situation, because, like, I don't know how high Oda plans to go with these powers, but, like, one of the things that, like, is that I think about is the concept that, like, Luffy wants to be the freest person, right? But we're in a story full of restrictions. For example, like, you're in the Grand Line and you can't leave the Grand Line because of the Calm Belt, right? You can't go into the other blue because of the Red Line. And so a lot of people think the Red Line is going to get destroyed to create the All Blue and that kind of thing. But more so than that, Luffy being the freest person, it's kind of weird because he has a life restriction. He can't be in the water. So then maybe it's something where, like, conquerors will allow you to, like you're saying, overcome anything, and by doing that, we might end up seeing fights with devil fruit users underwater, where they're through conquerors, they create their own like air bubbles essentially. And I was looking at like, people were complaining about like the Dragon Ball Z kind of fighting we got in the recent chapters, but like if we take Conqueror's Haki and the way it kind of creates like this atmospheric pressure, right? When Shanks was on Whitebeard's ship, he destroyed the wood, and it felt like if Fujitora was there and applying his whole fruit on the ship essentially, right? And then right, and then so then like an idea would be that like Oda already created a canon of space pirates and like fighting in space. I'm like, could One Piece go that far with being able to conquer all things? Would that allow a conqueror to overcome even like a natural weakness like this, where fighting underwater he can't do? That's a restriction, but he's supposed to be the freest person. Going out into space, he needs to breathe, right? That's a restriction. So maybe Conquerors allows you to bypass those things.
Yeah, I think we kind of got an example or hint of that part in Udon Prison, and so we see, we didn't get enough, I think, of Kid's Conquerors. There's a lot of things that feels like Wano didn't touch on because Oda's trying to rush things, but Eustace Kid and Luffy are conquerors, and they're portrayed as direct rivals, although it's kind of questionable right now. We'll see what happens in the future. And we see them with Sea Stone on, and they're conquering the Sea Stone.
Yeah,
the Sea Stone still negates their Devil Fruit, but it has very little effect on them.
Or right? I think the warden said like the Sea Stone should be effective, but he's overcoming it just through sheer willpower, and that alludes to the fact that you can do something like that.
Yeah, and the thing is, so this ties into both Odin and what I said in my video about Luffy. One of these things was pointed out, I think, by Arthur, and I was going to make a part 2 to my video because my video came up before Odin's death, and so, or at least around manga time, I think, maybe, or before this was picked up or whatever. So what was shown in Impel Down is Ivankov says, Luffy overcame, or he said, is it luck, right? And then he realized it wasn't luck, right? Because luck is often compared to willpower, and you often question akin to fate and free will, luck versus willpower in Oda's story. It's an interesting juxtaposition, questioning, is it both or is it either one? And so Ivankov at first, attributes it to luck, that Luffy survived Magellan's poison that should have killed anybody else.
Right.
There's no guarantee he was going to survive. This moment is very similar to Odin surviving the Hour of Legend, right? Because when Luffy's in Impel Down, there's a clock on the wall, and there's a certain time limit, like, if he doesn't survive this, he's going to die. Same for Odin. And in both instances, they thought it'd be luck. And then one of the scabbards says to Odin, about it being willpower, or whatever, I think. And then Ivankov realizes, no, it's not luck, right? That it was willpower. And then after he learns that Luffy's Dragon's son, it's further confirmed that, yes, your extraordinary will, you are Dragon's son. And so Conquerors does seem to be tied to extraordinary willpower, I think is what you were mentioning a while ago. The ability to overcome all odds, to overcome anything that's put in your path.
Yeah.
And this is something we talked about a little bit earlier. So anything that's thrown at you, you can overcome it. And this is why Conquerors cannot be learned. It has to be, you have to earn it. It's kind of like crowning yourself, right? A conqueror's crown.
It has to be awakened, essentially. I like to think that there's more people who have conquerors, and there's probably lots of examples of people who could have been conquerors, but they didn't have the willpower to awaken it, or they never put themselves in a situation to, command, right? How many Momos would be successful in his situation, right? To rise up as an 8-year-old and command people. There's most Momos would have failed. It was this Momo that succeeded.
But some people are, I think, they probably are born to an extent with it, right? By the time they're 3 years old. Big Mom is a little kid. I don't know what type of trials and tribulations she's been through, but she just suddenly was using conquerors when she was hungry, right? So maybe I don't know that somebody had this theory about trauma, and they shared it with me, and I briefly mentioned it in the video, how trauma seems to be a trigger for a lot of characters to unlock conquerors. It's like a triggering moment where, are you going to be overcome and crushed by your trauma and reduced right into a state of depression, whatever, or are you going to conquer it, and either, whatever path you choose after you conquer it, right, you're still going to overcome whatever's afflicting you. So then the message behind it is beautiful, but I think it also serves a purpose with the story, in which we see Doflamingo, the trauma of, about to be executed up there with his family, and then he awakens his conquerors Haki. Ace about to lose his brother, right? Luffy. That traumatic moment, right? The terror of it had him awaken his conquerors. And then vice versa, we saw on Amazon Lily, Luffy use conquerors effectively, because there's been other instances to try to stop that bull, and it was very brief, but the real use of it was on Amazon Lily, trying to stop someone from dying, right? And then we see it in its true power, its true majesty, when he's trying to save his own brother Ace, right? So a mirror moment between Ace and Luffy from being executed. There seems to be several instances that involve trauma, a life or death moment where you really have to overcome something. Interesting that it's a life or death moment, so you're trying to overcome either the death of yourself or the death of somebody else. You want to defy death in a way, whether it's your own death or somebody else's death. Again, conquering anything you want in the world, defying it, not letting it happen, which is an interesting juxtaposition when you pit Luffy against the gods, right? So you have Imu, who really wants to impose his or her will on the world, and Luffy, I think, the conquering moment that's going to be really, in my opinion, epic at the end of the series is just seeing Luffy defy Imu. And again, Luffy's Conquerors has progressed steadily since he first unlocked it. It's been building up. You could argue before he even displayed it, right, early on in the story. There's that moment where he's climbing the mountain with Nami. I think that's a conquering moment. And by the end of the story, I would just love to see what Luffy can do with Conquerors Haki, because as the story progresses, Conquerors keeps on getting more and more and more impressive, from knocking out, from taming an animal, to knocking out a small group of people or a person, to knocking out a whole army, to becoming advanced and, targeting enemies from afar, to splitting the sky. So what is next for, as Conquerors continuously develops? Now he's an emperor. Where else is it going to go is pretty much what I'm wondering. What else have we not seen?
Yeah, it's gonna, I think I feel like the idea that they can make their own bubbles, essentially, I kind of think about it like Room a little bit. Like Conquerors would be able to, like, when you think about Law, like he can, a lot of people don't know what the limit is to his power, but he makes a room, and anything he goes, or anything he wants, goes inside that room. And I think about that, it's kind of like, is that not like similar what a conqueror should be able to do? Like they have this certain realm that they create, and we're kind of seeing that in the anime where I don't know if you noticed this, but whenever Luffy's like it's Luffy time in the anime, they put a red filter over everything, and it's like very, very, like I think this is in episode 1026 probably, the Conqueror's Haki video episode, where he finally uses the coding, when he rises up, it goes from blue to just red when Luffy's Conquerors is starting to flex, and I was like, is that not like the same thing as like Law creating a room of like a massive scale? Is that it? I feel like that's essentially what Conquerors should feel like.
That's interesting,
right?
Yeah.
Like
you're in this conquering room in a way, and so long as like you're within a certain vicinity, like you're kind of under his presence, like when you enter a place, who the dominant person is in a way. Like go to another country, you enter the room, who the president is or whatever, right? This is like their area, what not to do and what you can do or whatever.
Right.
That's kind of like what Conquerors is. And so, when someone like Shanks is within, which is very impressive, he's all the way on his boat, but that whole vicinity, right? The waters around that island, the island itself, in that moment, that was Shanks' territory, in my opinion. In that very moment, that was Shanks' territory, even though Luffy was there. He owned that island. He owned those waters. Everybody knew not to approach. Green Bull knew to flee, right? And so kind of like your room idea, you were in his room, in his presence. And the only people that would probably not run away are Luffy, Kaido, Big Mom, right? Like probably the only ones that probably stick around or whatever.
Like you could be in there and be a strong-willed person, but like being a non-conqueror in a conqueror's room is like an obvious disadvantage. But the people who can fight evenly are someone who can put out their own realm, essentially their own as the chat Isaac saying domain expansion, but like essentially like, and I bring up that point because I think that Oda chose Law and Kid's powers very specifically. And just a quick aside to the chat, I'm gonna get to the super chats in a little bit because I know Vinland has to go in a little bit, but I do want I want you got your questions. I want to give Vinland a chance to answer some of these questions.
So one quick point. So in terms of the territory, right? Just imagine if Shanks had slowly made his approach closer and closer to the island. Like imagine the way he walked onto Whitebeard's ship. And the closer he approached, they said, "You guys need to get back. You can't withstand this man." From the distance, Greenbow could not withstand him, right? Yeah. So imagine he brought his ship closer to the island as the pressure gets stronger, and then he takes his first step onto the island. And every step he takes getting closer to the Flower Capital is just more and more and more, right? Because his room is becoming more and more concentrated and confined, right, to where he is. And then just all descends upon you. I think we're going to get one of those moments eventually, and the story is going to be insane. Just exactly what you can do with it. I think somewhere, I don't remember where this was. I think Rayleigh had actually mentioned that Conquerors is the power to fight with your spirit, right? In one of the translations.
It's the ability to overwhelm another spirit, I think.
Yeah. So I think in one translation he said the ability to overwhelm another with your spirit. So basically fighting with your spirit is how some other people have interpreted the translation. I don't know what the most exact one would be. Kind of like all the potential, options that can stem from it. So imagine that your spirit can do anything, because it does seem like in one of those recent episodes that Zoro's Ashura is actually confirmed in a way to be directly linked to Conquerors, right? To fighting with your spirit. That might actually tie into the elemental Haki thing that you did mention. Although that does raise some questions, because I wouldn't like the idea of, other characters that have shown elemental abilities to have Conquerors as well that are using it, like that lightning, what's his name, McGuy, whatever his name is.
McGuy,
I just wouldn't like the idea of him having Conquerors to use lightning, and everybody else has done it. So maybe there's another Haki explanation.
Yeah. So the one for that one right now is it's advanced. It's the next tier of Rio. Like we just learned Rio, and then like the next flow of that would be Rio is essentially letting your energy flow out of you, and so electricity and fire are methods of dispelling energy, right? So those are the easiest ones, but then controlling energy, and the next levels, that would be Rio. But the conqueror side, right? Like when we're talking about like Shanks like walking up and showing up, and you talked about it where it's like his demeanor can change the weather. I think you showed in the anime scene where like I think it was Mihawk showed up to the island, Shanks was a little bit more serious, and then once it lightened up, then it became sunny, right? And when I think about conquerors, and the reason why I said atmospheric pressure, well, the whole concept of storms is really, really important, right? Because essentially when we get these high tier characters coming together, a storm gets created. And how do storms create? It's a difference of high pressure and low pressure atmospheric like stuff. So then if you have two conquerors meeting up and they're disturbing the atmospheric pressure to the point where they can split the skies, that would create a storm. And so in a lot of ways, I feel like Conquerors is going to be something along those lines of affecting nature to that level, right? The presence. When we think about what affects our planet, it's gravity and like the sun and those kinds of things. Those are the things that control most of like our world's natural functions. But a quick secondary thing, when I was talking about the room thing, I was saying that like I think Oda chose all three of the monster captains' powers very specifically, but I try to think about it like, Law and Kid's powers. Like why would their powers be very important for the end story, right? We already get an idea with Law where it's like the immortal surgery and the possibilities of awakening. That fruit's just broken in general. But I brought up the idea that like that room concept being like a conqueror-like ability. I've been recently thinking that the electromagnetism thing that Kid has is kind of like the natural manifestation of conquerors, in the sense that like when you think about magnetism, when you think about like what conquerors are able to do, Luffy has the ability to attract people, but conquerors also have the ability to repel people too. And so I was thinking like that's kind of like when Kid puts an awakening on somebody, like they attract things towards them, that electromagnetism pull. And the reason why I was asking that is because you could agree that like Viola's fruit from Dressrosa. Her fruit is essentially like observation Haki in a fruit, right? When you kind of like boil down what she's able to do.
Yeah.
So with that kind of thinking, wouldn't it make sense if there were other fruits that resembled not just conquerors but armament too? And like, for example, Bello Betty, like you're saying, she has the ability to rile people up with her voice, essentially command people in a way, but that's a devil fruit power, not Haki. But to me, that's almost like a conqueror's Haki power within a devil fruit. And you know, with Viola's thing, I think there's multiple fruits that kind of have observation Haki like powers, and I've been thinking that there's multiple devil fruits that have like conquerors Haki like powers, and to the point where even seeing it, like you were saying, with Luffy's Gear 5 awakening, he just exploded with conquerors Haki lightning. And I don't know if that's devil fruit awakening specific, we don't really get the context, but I also asked you earlier with like, is it just intimidation? Whereas like with Luffy's Nika fruit, one of the things was saying that like, you know, it brings smiles to everyone's faces. And so like, do you think that is also a conqueror like power too? Is that like that positivity of being able to affect someone and bringing them a smile could be related to the conquerors?
So when we spoke about conquerors, and one of the things I was focusing on was influence and the ability to influence others. I do think that Luffy's power is more so just so ridiculous that it just brings laughter. A lot of things often overlap. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily the same thing, right? And so, you know, Luffy's, sun god, Nika, Joy Boy, whatever it is, known as Joy Boy because not only is he always smiling, but because he probably brings, you know, smiles to other people. I don't think that's necessarily his conquerors.
Related to the conquerors.
It does seem like there might be more to Sun God, you know, the Sun God Nika and the most ridiculous power and rubber and stretching. You know, the ability to conquer anything, but what about the ability to stretch anything? What would that exactly imply if you took it to its limits? Like, could you stretch your power endlessly? You know, where we learned that the more he laughs, right? And this was something I actually made a video on before we saw what Luffy's devil transformation would be, because I was saying that Luffy, in my video, I said that after Kaido had said to Luffy, you know, the more you smile, it was revealed that what he was really saying was the more you laugh. I made a video before we even got, you know, the sun god Nika saying Luffy's going to awaken the laughing god's devil fruit, because it reminded me of Hunter x Hunter, a scene from that without really spoiling, with that old guy, Netero. Netero versus Meruem, and he has this big smile on, you know, Buddhism and, you know, awakening in Nirvana, and, you know, the concept of the afterlife and escaping the cycle of rebirth, right? And I think it's in, what is Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever it is, escaping the cycle of rebirth, and how it ties into the sun god Sun Wukong, who is based off of, as we found out, what's his name, Hanuman, right? Which was a move that was used, I think, 3-3ville, and others have spoken about that. So Sun Wukong and Hanuman are pretty much the same, and, you know, Sun Wukong's name basically means the monkey awakened in the darkness or enlightened, and so it hinted at Luffy's awakenings. I made a video on that about how Luffy would, you know, awaken and be, you know, start laughing uncontrollably, and that's basically what we got, wherein laughter makes Luffy stronger, and, you know, the more you laugh, it's exacerbated exponentially, and he gets stronger over time, right? I don't think we've fully seen the limits of that yet, but similar to, you know, constantly increasing in ability or its power, what if you could stretch other things? You know, we see Luffy's conquerors just, you know, leech or reach out away from him, you know, to where Kaido is all the way down below. Similar to Shanks' conquerors reaching over onto the island, you know, it's a long distance for Shanks. I think in the future, maybe Luffy will be able to stretch other things beyond just the environment or his own body, you know, maybe his spirit. I think even Tekking had an old theory on that, where he said that, you know, Luffy will be able to stretch his spirit for Rio or whatever, and like be able to, like, you know, stretch out his attacks. So maybe your spirit can actually, you know, go further than it already does. Obviously that's just, you know, some headcanon. It's not well defined yet.
Some fun thinking, possibilities. Yeah, it's interesting with like conquerors can be incorporated, because part of the video that I'm making is essentially like I like to look at Big Mom's fruit, right? Big Mom's fruit, do you think that if she weren't a conqueror, how much of her devil fruit power would she be able to access? Because most of it is, she gives you an ultimatum, life or death, but it comes from fear, intimidation. So
yes, good point.
If she wasn't a conqueror, would she be able to do that, or would her power be relegated to just essentially transferring her soul out of her body? Like that's primarily what we saw now, is that she's able to take her own soul and put it into homies, but then she's also to use her own soul. And so I was thinking about that. I was like, maybe that's like the core of her power, and the homie part is only possible because she's a conqueror. If you put that fruit in a person who didn't have conquerors, would they be able to do that same thing, like as efficiently as she's been doing it? Yeah, like you can make someone fearful out of you.
Yeah, so yeah, even with Big Mom, there's a lot of questions that have been left unanswered, which is why I think they're not done, and there's something Oda has planned for the rest of the story. Mother Carmel, the fact that the new homie that Big Mom informed, hopefully it's not put into an SBS or Vivid card, but we saw, Mother Carmel looks like that new homie that she had formed. Go back to the Conqueror's point. Hera, yeah. And so it's as if, Big Mom is, is conquering the spirits that she steals, right, to bend them to her will. It's kind of, and so I give an example of Moria. When Luffy defeated Moria, and he's like, "Oh no, my shadows are escaping me." Imagine if Moria had conquerors or advanced conquerors or whatever, and he had enough will to stop the shadows from leaving him. Because remember what happened, going back to the concept of a voice and influence, they were yelling for their shadows to return to them, right? Yeah. Shadow, come back to me, shadow, come back to me, right? Giving all speeches and everything. So imagine if, in that way, their own will, their own voice. Is very interesting how Oda uses that even for people around conquerors, suggesting that we all have similar powers, even if they're not an exact ability. Again, the overlapping I talked about. But if Moria had conquerors, would he have been able to resist and keep those shadows, just like Big Mom, holding on to these homies or these spirits?
That's a great point. I love that because it almost, in that scene in Thriller Bark, it almost seemed futile that they were like calling out to the thing. At the end of the day, they needed Luffy to knock the shit out of Moria, but like how impactful was them calling out? And I think you're right that the voices probably did assist in some way, and then Moria ended up clamping his mouth and then essentially commanding through his own voice to chill out or something, like essentially to stay within him, right? And then he continued on the fight. Obviously he failed, but the concept of voices was actually impactful there. Now I think about it, it's like maybe a conqueror who lost their shadow in that situation, if Moria had their shadow and a conqueror spoke out, that shadow might have had enough willpower to escape Moria's grasp. But we didn't get an example necessarily. I don't think, the only example I guess really would be Zoro there, because Zoro now has conquerors officially, so he would be a conqueror in that situation who Luffy didn't ever call out for his shadow. I don't think. He kind of insulted his shadow, I think, for a little bit, but he never was just like, come back to me. I don't think he commanded it like that. I don't think Zoro did either. So that's a pretty interesting example now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, and I think with Big Mom, her I feel like it makes sense that if she didn't have conquerors, it wouldn't be as effective, right? And so like you're saying, if Moria had it, it might have been more effective. And the reason why I brought that up is because stretching the idea of conquerors out a little bit, the possibility to possibly influence laughter or smiles, right? I think about that in two ways, where it's like Rayleigh said, be careful with conquerors, right? You can't just leak it out. And then we see with Shanks, right, if his own crew is like, yo, chill out, like there's too much conquerors, that kind of thing, and is knocking out his own crew. But I was thinking about it, like if you think about Joy Boy or Nika, who had this power to make everyone happy, or smile or laugh or like that. It could be a flip around with that concept of, well, if everyone's just constantly happy and smiling, that's not necessarily a good thing either, because of the smile fruits, right? Like those force people to smile against their own will. And so if you had a conqueror that can encourage a smile or laughter against people's own wills, that's also, that could go in a bad direction also. And so that's kind of where I was thinking, like, that might be the loop around with Joy Boy and Nika, where maybe Joy Boy and Nika's original story is something like that, where it was a good until it wasn't, where it was like, it was an accepted like thing, but then it grew out of control and too many people were smiling or laughing or stretched out, right? A lot of people bring up like VinlanD as like everything was very stretched out and long in there, and everyone's kind of chill and happy in a weird way.
Do you think because of that island, because I know that what's his name, Sawyer 7 Mage, his very video on, it's probably one of the best Blackbeard Rock Steezerdeck videos. I don't know if you've seen that yet.
The one with the Davy Jones. Yeah, I've seen some of the ideas floating really around, good. But
you have to watch that. Whoever's listening right now, it's really good. And one thing I just thought about was the fact that we have a juxtaposition again of two powers, right? So we have the Davy Jones stuff, which might allude to someone that was an ancestor figure to Zebek and Blackbeard, right? In terms of inherited will. But we have the devil fruit ability, maybe, right? Not confirmed yet, of maybe the former user of a sun god from the Void Center, whenever that island was around, that had stretched out all those creatures there. Why is it that both of those two people would be on the same island, right? Why would you have whoever maybe, whatever power you might have had, right? The enemy to the sun god, if Davy Jones was or whatever, all of them on the same island against one another.
Yeah,
it's just something that just popped in my mind. Yeah,
in that arc, a lot of people like neglect the importance there, but I definitely think there is importance there. I've been thinking about it more.
Did they have a Davy back fight? Did somebody, get recruited? Did somebody lose all their teammates? Right? Did somebody, take everything from the other person? Because that's kind of the motto, right? Like, don't play this game because you'll lose everything that you have. And,
Yeah, and in the introduction of Foxy also with the slow thing, there's so many different weird concepts there. But one of the things that I've been thinking about more and more is that apparently one of the only inter-island connections or interactions in all of One Piece is Long Ring, Long Land, and Water 7, where the Aqua Laguna that Water 7 suffers from is the same rise and fall of the tides that causes Long Ring, Long Land to raise its water level and drop its water level. Apparently that was like confirmed. It's on the wiki. I forget where it was confirmed, but I was like, wait, we haven't even gone like any. I don't think any other island has ever affected another island like that, where like a situation on one island that naturally exists ends up affecting Water 7 or another island, to the point where the Water 7 now is like trying to float. But Davy Jones being there it's just an interesting, like, or not being there, but like the concept of it introduced there is so weird, because now that we have the Nika thing and the stretching, it does make it feel like there's that island's gonna be more important. And it's weird to say, like, is it like a pre-God Valley version of things? I was bringing up the point recently that, like, when you look at Wano is like a giant wall that like has like inside it has a bunch of water, and kind of Long Ring, Long Land is kind of that same concept, where it's like a ring of islands and in center is water and it just overflows, and it's kind of like a lower version of Wano.
Yeah, and Fishman Island is surrounded by a bubble. It's like, a lot of these countries are cut off from the rest of the world in a way.
Yeah,
you think about it.
It's interesting to see think like how Oda even designed these things for them to connect like this. So it's kind of interesting. But like, in going back to like the whole conquerors part, the other person I wanted to bring up was Boa, because one of the things that is always brought up is like, you have to be lusting for her to affect you, but that's not necessarily the case. It's apparently like she just needs to affect you. You need to have
okay, yeah. So sorry to interrupt. I know where you're kind of going with this. So I think that what happens, this goes back to one of your original points about we're talking about influence and everything. I think if it was anybody else besides Boa that didn't have conquerors, that you probably would have to lust for her. But because she has conquerors, and you were talking about merging observation with your conquerors and other abilities, she's using her conquerors with her devil fruit, so she can overwhelm the fact that you don't lust for her and conquer you either way and force her power to affect you.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. Beautifully said. That essentially, like, yeah, if you weren't a conquerors, you would need to be really attractive for that fruit to make sense. But and like when you think about such a powerful fruit, why give it, the way she was given it was through the celestial dragons, right? Why would you just be giving it to a bunch of people and for it to not go out of whack way earlier? Literally, if you touch somebody, they can turn to stone. That's a very dangerous power to be just handing out to a bunch of property, essentially, right? Like the celestial dragons, like if we were to go at the line of logic that Boa probably wasn't the first one to be given that fruit amongst the people, the population that they had, then it would make sense that because Boa has conquerors to some extent, like she was able to naturally bring out more of the power than probably accessible normally. And there are actually scenes where, when we talked about it earlier, I forgot the names of these three characters that Luffy was trying to save when he awakened his conquerors, but they weren't lusting for her when she froze them. She like, it's very typical where you see the hard eyes on the statues when she freezes somebody. The three people that she froze in chapter 520, I believe it's 519, 520, they don't have hard eyes. And we do know that certain people are able to resist whether they're attracted to or not. It's simply having a strong enough willpower is what prevents you from turning into stone, right? Like, I think the three people we saw that were able to resist her was like Smoker, Law, and somebody else. I forget the few, but I wouldn't necessarily say that Law was probably not attracted to her, but more so that he just has a strong enough willpower to resist any being affected. So,
that's interesting, because it causes me to think about Blackbeard, and we think about the final fight with Luffy. You're gonna put Blackbeard versus Shanks, and obviously Shanks, the best conquerors as we know in the story, going against somebody with a lot of powerful devil fruits. And we saw it with Green Bull. People are believing that Shanks may be canceled. We'll see what the anime does, because they might fill in some of the gaps, what happened in between, whether or not Green Bull willingly returned to his form or not, right, on his own. But if Shanks did knock him out of his devil fruit because he couldn't concentrate, right, I don't want to. So what I'm saying right now isn't a spoiler. This is just from the manga.
Yeah.
There's something else that I could say, but I'm not going to say it. I'll just keep it moving. But
well, like, to the canceling power is something I brought up in previous, because I was essentially saying with Sai earlier, we had a collab last week, and I think in a few videos before, I was essentially saying that so the way I kind of see it is, if Blackbeard's set up to be this person that takes away devil fruit powers, then to mirror that, I was saying that on Emu, and I don't, and this idea was created before we saw Shanks in like 1054 or 1055, like that kind of thing. And I don't know where Shanks would fit in, because I always thought like peak conquers and observation and whatever. But with Blackbeard, I was thinking, like, if he has the power to remove devil fruits, then maybe Eam would either have the power to remove Haki, or on the flip side, my idea is that Haki, and I've been alluding to this in this conversation, where it's like, Viola's fruits, observation Haki in a fruit, there might be conquers Haki's in a fruit. I like to think some of this paramecia powers are like armament, where it's like the diamond Jozu, he's like a paramecia. And you think about armament, if you think about armament like resembling the energy of the sea in a way, sea stone is supposed to be as hard as diamond in the One Piece verse. And so it might be that Jozu is, armament is reflecting the nature of the sea, whereas like, Jozu's reflecting the energy of diamond through the devil fruit. But so going back to, I was saying that Emu could go one way, or it could go the other way, where he has like he or she has crazy Haki to the point where they could reintroduce a bunch of the fruits that Luffy has faced. Kind of like, I don't know if you've seen like Gurren Lagann, or like this is also a common anime trope where it's like despair, like fighting Luffy with everything that he has fought and like overcoming him with that. And I was just thinking, like, imagine Emu had all the devil fruits, and it was
so basically an
like
answer
that.
as to what devil fruits are, right? Like the spirit that encompasses a devil fruit. And so, what exactly is the soul that's housed in a devil fruit? And if it's just spirit, and if spirit is proximate to Haki, then maybe Haki can manifest and take different forms in the world, right? Maybe that's what you're alluding to. The main point I was making though with Blackbeard was when he fights Luffy, he has the powers we saw against Ace to nullify your devil fruit.
Yeah,
that'd be a problem for Luffy, given he's the Guruguranomi. But now, if Conqueror's Haki can influence, right, the power to conquer all things, which I should have mentioned in the video, doesn't that suggest then that Luffy maybe would be able to negate, if he can't turn off the ability fully, negate whatever Blackbeard tries to do to him to try and shut off his devil fruit?
Yeah, it's crazy to think that this is what might be possible, but like you're saying, there's a reason why Conqueror's Haki is a favorite power system, because because even the potential of being this way, and then the lead up, like, do you think it's this crazy to think that we're gonna get, like, because when I bring up any Haki related like extension or my end of series power videos, like for example, I don't know if you've seen my Usopp video, but I say that essentially like his conquerors, or he's gonna get conquerors, and it's gonna be essentially like word manifestation, like he can speak things into existence almost, or like lie to people's disposition. Like if he says like he destroyed a mountain, people are gonna believe that he destroyed a mountain because it's like a conqueror's like ability might manifest. And so like when I say that, or like elemental Haki, they're like, there's not enough time in One Piece for these powers to exist. But I think you're on the boat too, that Conqueror's Haki can, like, to conquer all things is definitely something we haven't seen yet in the series to that extent. But if you're expecting that, what would you say to people to that like, this is something we might see in the last saga?
So I like the idea what you mentioned about Usopp, and people about Usopp dying. I think that'd be great for the story, just in terms of as we approach the end, memorable moments, right? Things that really remind you why this is such a impactful story, because of Usopp's character. And the power to conquer all things, when you think about it, includes the power to conquer fear. Mm-hmm. And so, Usopp is a character that wants to be the bravest warrior in the sea. I don't know what he's going to face, right? But everybody has their own conqueror's journey, right? Everybody's on their own path, and they conquer different things in their life. And I would just love for the narrative, or whatever, the plot of Usopp, whatever literary term is appropriate, but the plot of Usopp just overcoming and conquering fear.
Yeah.
Right. And doing so, and the ultimate fear that people have would be the fear of death, and that kind of seems like Usopp's greatest fear, right? Always afraid, oh my god, we're gonna die, right?
Yeah.
Usopp conquering that fear and embracing it, even, and not so much as a carrier of the will of D. I love the fact that it's often difficult to tell whether or not Oda's trying to say this person's a secret D or not, when really he's saying that anybody can have the will of D. Even his readers can have the will of D, right? There are people in the story, Toniyasu, other people, they died with a smile, right? But they're not carriers of the will of D. They didn't have the exact iconic smile, but they were still iconic in the way they died. And so I think Usopp, even if he might not be a carrier of the will of D, can still die the same way that a Luffy or a Roger or anybody else would, right? The death of a brave warrior, someone that overcame and conquered death and conquered the ultimate fear.
Right.
So,
I think it's kind of crazy to say that, like, because like when I made that Usopp video, a lot of people weren't on board with him getting conquerors or him being able to do these kinds of things. But like you're saying, like, conquer, I think, is like overcoming something massive, right? And like fear is a massive thing to overcome, and to the point where it's like, I think there's going to be a lot of characters that respect Usopp. I think Luffy is one of those characters that respect Usopp to put himself in these situations where most people wouldn't, right? Like if you're truly this weak or fragile, would you be, being the Sniper King in Eni's lobby the way you were? No, like that's a special person, that's a specific person, and Usopp showed that he was capable of that. Yeah, he had to put a mask on to achieve that, but Onigashima aside and Wano aside, I definitely think that Usopp might, is gonna be a person that demonstrates this like conqueror like power system that we haven't quite seen yet. It's interesting to say that we don't know what Conqueror's Haki fully is, but truthfully we just learned about like several new powers of Conquerors. So I wouldn't say, I don't think anyone should be able to say that we're like experts on Conqueror's Haki this far into the story. I feel like we're just learning about it even now. And so here, one last question with regards to Conquerors. So I'm gonna be going on a podcast tomorrow, that One Piece talk, and last time I was on, we got into heated debate, and I was basically saying that Kobe is gonna be a character that gets Conqueror's Haki by the end of the story. What do you think?
So yeah, I mean, I think that could be possible because Kobe is a Haki-centric character, right? Kobe, unless he gets a Delphi. I know some people think that Aokiji will die and Kobe will get his Delphi power, but maybe. I mean, has Kobe displayed anything that would warrant him, unlocking conquerors yet? I mean, the most traumatic thing he went through so far in the story was Marineford, and it seems like he unlocked Haki generally, and specifically observation Haki, in that moment, instead of conquerors, which would have been a good moment for him to use conquerors when you think about it, because similar to Luffy wanting everybody to stop so he could save Ace, Kobe wanted everybody to stop fighting so he could, save lives. So, imagine him just like yelling like a parallel universe. Imagine Kobe, yelling like Luffy and everybody collapses. And so looking at him like, oh, he has it too.
So so in the conversation that I brought up was like, essentially that scene is a display of him using conquerors, I think. And the reason why is because, I go way more in detail in the video, but what I essentially say, I forget what chapter it was, 580. Oh no, it's this chapter. Yeah. So what happens is, he says a command. He says, "That's enough." And it gets like the Conqueror's Haki lines, and it has like this whoosh thing is used like, when Shirahoshi, it's used for wind SFX, but it was used when Vivi commanded the weather, or Shirahoshi commanded the Sea Kings. It uses the same thing for that Haki bloom moment for when they first used that, interesting like power. So he says that's enough. And we do know that Conqueror's Haki doesn't have to knock someone out. It could also, perturb them. It could shake them up. It
command attention. It goes back to influence in the voice that can, they say in the Philistine, the voice that can, split this guy's apart, that can tear this guy asunder, a voice that basically commands respect and attention.
Yeah, right. And so in this scene, the reason why I think that Kobe has it is because he's in the middle of the biggest war to date in the series, and probably, even in the verse, it's a huge war that garnered worldwide attention. And he's just like to carry back on the quote that Luffy is an ant in the storm of Marineford. Kobe is a gnat in comparison. He's even smaller, and he's this person that nobody even knew, yet he was able, I'm sure plenty of people were shouting, right? But he was able to shout in the biggest war and not just garner attention, but Kizaru and Akainu both did listen. They both stopped. Akainu didn't have to pull back his thing, but yeah, he's standing right in front of him. A lot of people are like, he would stop. But Kizaru also was in the air trying to shoot down Law, and he also stopped. He didn't have to listen either. And so when we look at the panels, and I pulled it up on the stream, was that like after he screams, some of the strongest people are the ones who stop. We see Marco, Law, Akainu, Kizaru. Yeah. They all pause. And it's
very similar. Yeah, and this moment is actually very similar. It happens in the same arc, and it's very similar to Luffy yelling for everybody to stop.
10 chapters before, by the way.
Yeah. And also the whoosh that happens. I don't know if it happens in the manga, but in the video, I just remember the scene. In the anime, they actually include a similar whoosh where the wind blows ahead of Luffy finally unleashing his conquerors.
Yeah, no, so they do have when Luffy does it in 569. Right afterwards, they have the same SFX, the Wu, but then they don't finish it here because it's a smaller panel. But they give Kobe this giant panel. So I was just like, and I think that if Kobe doesn't get conquerors by the end of the series, right, I think it makes sense to. But I think this is like an example of him using it at the very beginning. Or at least a seed for the idea, right? It won't come out of nowhere. If Kobe gets conquerors, this is the first example that I would always come back to. That'd be like, yeah, he was able to command 2 admirals to stop. He said that's enough, and they stopped. How many, like, and then when people, clap back, I'm like, I'm pretty sure if any of us were in that war, we wouldn't been able to stop a Kainu or Kizaru.
Let's just go over a few characters, right? So Kobe and Luffy, actually, they're both saved coincidentally by Shanks, and Shanks is the other person that shows up and tells everybody to stop.
Right.
And they stop for a moment and they listen to him. And so it is interesting, the ability to command respect, right? A voice that can influence others. I do think that matters because that's what kings are, right?
Yeah.
The Supreme King's Haki. Kings command respect in that regard. And so, but you said that you had some questions from the chat.
Oh yeah.
So chat, right? Yeah.
Let's take care of these super chats, and then, well, okay, hold on. While I go through some of the super chats, I'm gonna be reading them. But 3Day, one of my members and mods, I was asking, will Ragnar be talking about your Shanks video? Would love to hear his thoughts on it. So I know you really liked it. So if you want to share some thoughts.
Yeah, so I guess I have time for like one idea I wanted to share, and it does tie into our conversation, because we did speak a little bit on this during Brago's stream, so you can check that out if you haven't heard it. About the children aspect that ties into Film Red, as well as the scene from Wano and being the Godfather, which is a great idea. I'll touch on that first, I guess. So the title Godfather stands out to me, which is interesting because Shanks is kind of like a Luffy's adopted father. I've always said that they're not just friends; he's a mentor. He's much older, so he plays more like an adopted father role, because Monkey D. Dragon was not present in Luffy's life. Although I have an idea I mentioned in the past that kind of contradicts that belief. But anyways, Dragon is Luffy's real father. We don't know what the relationship is with Dragon and Shanks. As I pointed out to ParVision on Twitter, Ivankov, when he meets Luffy, points out that Shanks and his father, similar will, pulling the strings behind the scenes, which fits in with ParVision's idea of Shanks as Luffy's adopted father, which would be interesting if he was, a godfather appointed to watch over Luffy while Dragon was doing his thing. That'd be an interesting, connection between the two. But either way, Shanks is somebody that also has a strong will and is also compared to Luffy, as we've seen many times, especially with Kaido on the rooftop, and we see Shanks right behind Luffy, right, resembling him as one of the few people that could injure Kaido, that has fought him at least. And so there are connections between the two, and both of these men doing things behind the scenes and trying to usher in the new era. And also Oda continuously having both of them say, the time will come, Luffy, when we meet again. And so these two father figures, one an actual father, one an adopted father in a way, or godfather, whatever you want to call him,
right,
are both expecting to meet Luffy in some way and are pulling strings behind the scenes to usher in a moment that the world government wants to prevent. What Shanks had mentioned about nobody being able to stop this reckless era, and now we get it again when we see him all these chapters later, with Shanks saying to Green Bull, are you and the Marines and the world government that afraid of the coming new era? You can't stop it. And basically Shanks and Dragon are not going to let anybody get in the way of whatever Joy Boy has been planning for hundreds of years. And so the other point I wanted to make, as it pertains to conquerors and the power to conquer all things and to influence the world, the power to conquer the sea is an interesting idea that I would love to see happen, with the waves rising or whatever, because that's pretty much what a pirate is. The pirate king, right, has conquered the oceans. And there's a scene with Rayleigh that stuck out to me many years ago, and I had to repeat it in this video because, it was a better rendition of an older video, better audio. And so I mentioned in the past that Rayleigh says to Luffy, what the Grand Line has in store for you is beyond your wildest imaginations.
Right.
Can you control, or another translation he says, can you control or can you conquer this wild sea? And then Luffy says, he has no desire to conquer or control anything. And it's just interesting because it's a juxtaposition of conquering and freedom, as we discussed, and it leads you to question a lot of things, right? the greatest kings we see in Game of Thrones, Kit Harington or whatever his real name, Jon Snow's his name, right? Like they felt like he'd be best to be king because he didn't want it. In the end, he didn't get it, but a lot of people thought he'd be best because it's an old trope you see in a lot of different stories where the guy that is qualified but doesn't want it is the best person because he will relinquish power. If you're from America and you're watching, they said about George Washington, the first president, that he gave up power. He wanted term limits or whatever because he believed that you can't have true kings don't want to rule forever. They relinquish power, right? And that's the greatest power of all. That really shows that you are a powerful person because you're willing to give power away, right? And so Luffy seems like somebody that is just like that. Although I'm sure Sabo is the same way. He might sit on an empty throne, or somebody else might. We'll see. But that's basically what a king should be like, is what Oda is saying. Somebody that doesn't want to be a dictator, but somebody that will relinquish power when his time comes. Somebody that does not want to, that wants to be a conqueror so that they have control over their own life, right? Not so that they can control the lives of other people. But basically in that moment, Rayleigh asks him, can you control this wild sea? Can you conquer these powerful oceans? And Luffy then responds that he doesn't want to do that. A callback to Roger telling Shiki the same thing. I have no desire to conquer anything. And then you see the oceans go crazy as soon as he says that, right?
Right.
And, comes with conquering the sea. Because Rayleigh says right after that moment, very mysteriously, because again, it's what Shanks has said about Luffy repeating the same thing that Roger had said. Well, in this moment, Luffy once again sounds just like Goldie Roger. And because Rayleigh was on the ship and he would know what Roger said to Shiki.
Right.
And so Rayleigh says in response, is that so? Right. But I took it to maybe mean something else, as in, a hint that just maybe that's what a true conqueror is, right? The person most deserving to be Pirate King was Goldie Roger at the time because he was just like Luffy. And these are the people that can conquer the ocean. Whether or not they can actually control it, right? Power to conquer all things, it remains to be seen. But I would love for that to be the case because it ties into ParVision's video. For those of you that wonder where I'm going with all this, ParVision mentions in his video about Shanks controlling the underworld in the case of the currents, right? And so there's these currents that are going underwater. And so imagine if you can, your will or your spirit, the pressure you were talking about with the weather can actually control the waves, because the weather actually does control, how ships can travel and stuff like that. If you can control the waves or the little funnels or whatever you call them underwater, the whirlpools or whatever, that would allow you to travel and it'd be like a sail in a way, right? It'd be like setting a sail on your ship.
Right.
You'd be able to force your ship to go wherever you want to. A lot of people think Monkey D. Dragon is so powerful because if he has a wind devil fruit combined with conquerors, then his ability to affect the weather is very powerful. He can actually control whether ships can pass, what can happen, right? He can control sea travel. And again, the parallel between Shanks, godfather, and actual father of Luffy, Monkey D. Dragon, would both pertain to controlling travel, weather, the sea, that kind of stuff. And the sea and the weather actually pertain to destiny. And so when you think of when Dragon first saves Luffy, right, and meets his son again, he kind of spreads his arms out and says, a pirate, that's fine too, right? Like basically saying that, destiny, dreams, these things will never cease to be. You get to decide for yourself, freedom, but also helping them set sail by controlling the weather and guiding them in a direction that was safe to travel, because their journey can't end here yet.
Right.
So I think that's, there are similarities between Shanks and Dragon in that regard. Again, Godfather, the name of your video, as well as, Monkey D. Dragon, Luffy's actual father, and their ability to control events in the One Piece storyline in a certain direction, leading to a conclusion that they don't know, right? So you're writing the story, but the end of the story must write itself. But you're able to write certain things along the way that will hopefully lead to the conclusion that you're looking for, even though you don't necessarily know what it's going to be.
Right.
So,
and you bring up a interesting. Someone also sent us bits for this, and with Shanks, I think in that theory, the stronger part is, I feel like it makes sense with the deep sea currents and like the White Strom to be associated with Shanks. And then I told you already that I had more ammo for like the black market Shanks idea. So all of that, we when I get that video, I'll definitely like we'll talk again more about the Shanks side. But something that I've been curious about is the level that you hold Shanks at, like the regard that you have for him. Does that carry on with Buggy? So Matt Cypher had bits. He said, does Ragnar think Buggy will play a role side by side with Shanks in the near future? And so just to add on to that, would you like, you know, Shanks having this conqueror role, and then also Buggy and Shanks being brothers and basically tied at the hip and like two peas in a pod, do you feel like that Buggy is going to surprise us in the same way, that not in the same way, but to the same extent that Shanks is surprising us right now?
Yeah, so I think that Buggy, even though he comes off as a gag at times, certain characters that are a gag, Oda has the unique ability to turn them into characters that are memorable and, you know, influential on how people, you know, perceive themselves in the world. And so an example I would give is Mr. What's his name, Mr. 2 or 3? Bonchan.
Oh yeah,
So Bonchan was Bonchan was kind of a gag when we kind of first meet him. Funny character, whatever. You know, changing faces, that kind of stuff, and an antagonist. But then over time, he turns into a, you know, fan favorite, right? Because of the person he was revealed to be and the sacrifices that he made. Now, that might not necessarily turn out to be the case for Buggy, but I do think that Buggy is more than a gag, right? He's not another Orochi. He's not, you know, another one of those characters, whichever one you have in mind. I think that Buggy is a character that's going to be very important, especially if, in my opinion, you know, characters that have certain relationships with each other. If Shanks does die, which I think has to happen, in my opinion, I just can't see him outliving Luffy towards the very end. I just can't see. I think some of these characters have to go in some way.
Wait, did I ever tell you why I think Shanks is gonna die?
Well, there are several reasons that I think so. In terms of, and I'm gonna make some videos on these. One is the Viking connection, wherein Vikings chase death, a glorious death, right?
To go to Valhalla.
Yeah, to go to Valhalla, and you know, they're also not afraid to die, and that's one of the things about the D's, right? They're not afraid to die, and I think that Shanks would be very, you know, even though he might not be a D, I would love for if Shanks turned out to be a celestial dragon. I know there's different theories on it.
Yeah, I'm leaning more towards D than celestial dragon, but
yeah, it could be either one. But if he were a celestial dragon, I would love for him to die with a smile, right? And unlike all these other celestial dragons, he actually does. Or if he was both, and that were to happen, right? I think that would send a powerful message. But I think if Shanks did die, like, that should have an impact on Buggy, in my opinion. I think Buggy should have a reaction to that, and so I would love to see how that affects him in the story. Buggy is definitely going to be around toward the end.
Yeah.
So, you know,
the reason why I think Shanks is going to die is because, well, this isn't the whole reason. It's like it made me feel like it was more so going to happen was when I looked at the Yonko posters of like, you know, it was Buggy, Blackbeard, Luffy, and Shanks. When I saw that, I was like, wait, there's a sort of a pattern here where because of the Yonkos, Shanks got injured. So Blackbeard as a Yonko, well, not as a Yonko, but Blackbeard gave Shanks the scar on his eye, and because of Luffy, Shanks lost his arm. So I was like, oh man, what if Shanks gets injured because of Buggy? And then so the last, like, it wouldn't make sense for it to just be, what are we gonna, is he gonna lose a leg or an arm? At this point in the story, it would make more sense to me that because of Buggy, it doesn't necessarily have to be like Buggy causes this, but like maybe Buggy's in a situation Shanks has to save him, and because of Buggy, Shanks gives up his life. And like a lot of people who heard that, they're like, oh, probably Blackbeard would be the person to like attack Buggy, and Shanks dies trying to save Buggy, similar to like the Luffy situation. And like, you know,
like that idea. I think that you know, I recently read that what's his name, the guy that wrote George R. Martin. I often think of J.R. Tolkien. George R. Martin said that during the Red Wedding. You watched Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah.
During the Red Wedding, he said in his book he had to skip it. He had to write everything that happened after because it was too emotional for him. Damn. I think that Oda might have certain characters that are like that. I feel like Shanks is a character that Oda, maybe, again, we don't know what's going to happen, but, you know, it's a character that Oda knows is going to die. He has it in mind what's going to happen. And it's one of those things that's definitely going to hit in terms of what he's been preparing. Because as you mentioned, like, you know, the scar, right? I think of it as the mark of the beast. They talk about, they've been marked by the devil, coincidentally with Blackbeard, because he's a devil. He loses his arm, but he's a sacrificial character. So one of my subscribers even mentioned to me that I seem to have an attachment to characters that are sacrificial, and he wanted to ask me why. And I said maybe on my second channel, if I get around to that, which I plan on doing soon, I'll make a video on that. But Shanks is definitely a sacrificial character. In the story, he's kind of a sacrificial lamb. And again, this takes us to chapter 1054. And I mentioned this to Brago. That was a very ominous, probably one of my favorite chapters in Wano. A very ominous and dark scene. I think everybody was saying that. And so he was saying, "Oh, he's the evil, blah blah blah." I think it felt as if Shanks was ready to, finish the game. Right? He'd been waiting for a while. The final level hadn't shown itself yet. He's kind of biding his time, and then it's finally here. Right, and I think you see the expression on Ben Beckman's face. It's as if the rest of the crew, they know Shanks well, but there are things that Beckman knows as the right hand of Shanks. Private conversations maybe that not everybody on the crew is privy to. Right. And so I think that because Shanks comes across sometimes as very carefree, caregiving individual. It's not like he's one of those people that wants to be a Debbie Downer and put all his issues on you. So I feel as if Shanks is one of those characters where he shared things with Beckman, or Beckman's been around maybe I don't know, aside from Yasop or whatever, whoever you recruit in what order. But whatever it is, Beckman looked as if he was concerned, right? It's kind of like with Roger dying and, the concerns that they probably had for him, or those that were most privy to his illness. And they put on, happy faces and everything. But I would imagine you see with Rayleigh, for example, everybody's happy. They're joking about it. You got 1 year left to live, whatever. Roger laughing, Crocus smiling, whatever. And Rayleigh just grinning. And Odin's like, what? He's shocked by it. But then you see when Roger says goodbye after disbanding the crew, you finally see Rayleigh lose that tough side of himself, right? And he's kind of like, he kind of sheds a tear or whatever. He's holding his face. Yeah. And Roger's putting his hand on his shoulder, like, my partner, like, look, we made it this far. You know what we've been working toward, and that was finally that time. Now we don't know if they ever seen each other again. I get the impression that they didn't. I don't even think Rayleigh could bring himself to go to the funeral, right? Another funeral. Yeah, that's the video I had about where was Roger buried and was their funeral, but he couldn't go to the execution, right? We didn't see Rayleigh there, and so that was their final goodbye. And Rayleigh just couldn't bring himself to do it. And so what I see from chapter 1054 is Beckman, like Rayleigh, concerned, just like Rayleigh be for Roger. And it's like, what's going on with Shanks? Like, it doesn't seem like he's ill. So what is he preparing himself for? What is about to happen that Beckman's like, there's something that Shanks has to do that might end up costing him his life or whatever. And so I like your idea that he's going to end up taking on the world or a great threat or enemy, and he's prepared to die for whatever he has to do, right? Right. Oda hints at it when he says, when Shanks saves Luffy, it's kind of preparing Luffy in a way. Just like we see with the funeral for Ace, where he says, I know this has to be weighing heavily on you. He thinks of his captain. We see Shanks during the flashback, how he's crying at the loss of his captain, how that weighed heavily on him. That was his adopted father figure, right? Yeah. And so with Luffy, Shanks was kind of an adopted father figure. He's thinking, well, you lost your brother, your adopted brother. I can relate to that pain. But I think with chapter 1 is where, he saves Luffy from the Sea King, and Luffy's crying because he feels guilty, holding Shanks in the same way that Shanks was holding on to Roger. We don't know exactly why that is and what happened to Roger in that instance. But, Shanks says to Luffy, it's just an arm. And I put on Twitter that I can see, Luffy, or I can see Shanks dying and saying that it's just a body, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the concept of life after death. And so, it doesn't even matter to him, So if your arm doesn't matter, that's this kind of symbolic that there are more important things than this physical form. And that does seem to be, again, I don't know what Oda's religion is, but that's very core, I think, to Buddhism. Again, Nirvana and all that stuff, the concept of the will of D, that there's something more than all of this that's more important. And so, yeah, I can I went on a long rant, but I can definitely see Shanks, sacrificing his life, being the sacrificial lamb in the story. Ushering whatever he's working on. Yeah.
And going back to the Buggy situation, when we're talking about the voices and controlling thing, I think you should watch my Buggy video, because I always think about if the more important Shanks becomes, the more important Buggy's going to become. And so when I look at Buggy, right, and looking at Shanks, we're saying controlling the seas, the deep sea currents, the the white strom, like, and that might be possible through conquerors and conquering the seas. And something about Buggy that I talk about in that video is essentially that Buggy might be like another example of like this storm power. And so basically if you haven't watched it yet in the chat, definitely go watch it. It keeps getting more interesting because I found this line. Well, going back, I said that Buggy might be the rain god essentially, and it sounds crazy, but it goes back to like the Ed War, and there's like one thing that Buggy had to do that makes no other sense to me otherwise. And I was basically saying that he encourages like storms or rain or something. And I came across this line that when he was when he was chosen to be a warlord, he goes, "Which way the wind blows in this world, it's not to the east or to the west, it blows for me." And I was like, yo, that's crazy, because then that's kind of what we're talking about here, right? The ability to command certain things, the conqueror conquer these certain elements. And like the way Buggy puts himself in the role of the world is essentially like to command people to conquer these things, no matter if it's an empty bluff behind it. But like he says these things and I'm like, okay, if Shanks is the sea and he's the wind or the storm or rain or something, that's kind of wild. So but okay, yeah. So we'll get to I'll get to some of the super chats that they're specifically asking for you. But before we get there, I know you have to go soon, so I just want to be able to let you talk to the chat and for the VOD and everything like that. And then I mean the chat can kind of understand that we were talking about voices and conquerors Haki and like being able to command like presences through your voice. And I think there's no better person for me to have this conversation with other than you, Vinland, with the all the creators.
That's a good connection, yeah.
the voice that he has, it's like it's imbued with conquerors, right? Like an actual person in the community that has it. So
I remember somebody made a meme of that, and they I pinned it in my one of my videos. I pinned it because I never thought about that.
And that that's also why I chose this conversation line, because it's like literally, like, I think people were listening to you were saying like you're ranting, but it's like people were like, you were like commanding emotions with what you're talking about, the exciting stuff and the sad stuff is like, it's very, very palpable when you speak about it. But yeah, let people know. I don't know if you're telling people about your like second channel, your second endeavor, but let people know. Obviously,
okay, yeah, just very briefly.
His links are in the description and the title, that kind of stuff. But yeah.
So the second channel hasn't started yet. I'm actually waiting on Eric of the Red Force podcast. He's doing a little animation for me for it, so I'm gonna wait until that's ready. But yeah, the second channel is going to be a little more mainstream. It's one of those channels I think could maybe get to 1 million subscribers. It's going to have some One Piece in it. It's going to have other, anime stuff. Something that's very relatable and in terms of business, things that add value to people's lives. And so this channel is definitely going to add value to people's lives. And you could probably share with just about anybody, and they wouldn't have to be a One Piece fan to enjoy or relate to it. So I'm really looking forward to it. I meant to get started on it when Oda went on his 1 month or 4 week break. Mm-hmm. I just never got around to it. But I have the ideas laid out, and it's what I'm actually most excited for, in my opinion.
I'm excited too now.
Yeah.
All right, so and obviously the chat probably knows you before me, so if you guys haven't seen his recent videos, because VinlanD's on demon time now, especially with these recent Shanks videos, it's like prime time. Definitely go check out his recent videos, and also it's just crazy how like the way we talk about Shanks is so different. Like you talk about him in a very, not in a different light necessarily, but we focused on different things in our videos. But in this conversation, you can very clearly see how the concepts that we're talking about do line up in a lot of ways. The conquering all things, the presence, the voice, what kind of resolve a man needs to have to display what Shanks is doing. And whether it's my theory or what you're putting Shanks underneath of like being able to hold up the world in the way that's no other person can do it, and push on an agenda and create a pirating world, or guide Luffy however it is, which isn't even like headcanon even anymore because of that. I forget which cover story it was, or like a magazine cover, it was like Shanks the one who guides like Luffy or something like that. So it's a lot of fun to talk to you about these concepts, because I've been going around to talk a lot of people about these things, and I feel like you're one of the people that have a more grounded and philosophical way that still expands the Conqueror's Haki power system even beyond what I've had on my channel, and people equate me to having like very out there theories. So it's definitely really awesome for you to not just talk about it, but like contextualize these details in your own words. So just again, thank you for coming on the stream and having the conversation. And I don't want to like take up too much of your time, so I'll do like some of the super chats, but if you have to go, just let me know.
Yeah, we can do like another 5 minutes, and I can answer a few questions.
Okay, so there was a specific one. Okay, so this one, Saint Rocks D Shanks PK. Oh, this is PK. So thank you for the super chat, and I know I'm jumping around, and after VinlanD hops off, I'll stay on and I'll address all the super chats too. So, and read the chat and close out the stream that way. So he says, I like the idea that Shanks is both son of rocks and a celestial woman, so a saint. He plays both sides of the board, deals with the Celestials and Goroseis while guiding the new era to bring the world to its dawn. I like the idea that he's a crossover too. That would be an interesting thing. I think Momo is a crossover, in my opinion. But what do you think about Shanks being on both sides of the aisle?
That's an interesting idea. I mean, I like the balance aspect. I had a video about Shanks' sword Griffin, and his sword, actually the mythology of it, for anybody who wants to read up on it, hints at a lot of what this subscriber of yours or viewer just said. Again, this is another script that I had written out about. So I'm going to go over all the possibilities for who Shanks is. I don't even think the One Piece Film Red movie fully breaks it down or spoils it. There's a hint, which is good on Oda, right? Because a lot of people didn't want that to happen in the movie. And so we're going to definitely find out in the manga. And so before that happens in the manga, I definitely want to make this video, because one of the possibilities I think is mind-blowing. I did hear that somebody, whose channel was it? Was it on your channel or somebody else's? Somebody had this belief that maybe Shanks was. There's a theory going out there now, and again, without going into One Piece film spoilers, there's a theory out there now that Shanks might be, the son of a missing Gorosei. Oh, that might be from Joe Three Skulls on Twitter.
Got you.
Where he had a whole like pentagram or whatever it's called, and he had all the Gorosei, and he said that instead of 5 stars, there used to be 6. Is what he was saying, and he was saying that maybe one of them broke the rules, and that's why you have some of them on God Valley. With the Monkey D, or no, sorry, Doflamingo was a hint apparently at some of this stuff that Doflamingo's father and parents were not the only ones that have done this. That maybe there were other celestial dragons that had done the same, and so they're assuming that maybe there's an old Gorosei member or whatever that had similarly done that, and he was punished or whatever for doing so, or maybe he had ended up dying at the hands of Zabek or whatever taking place if Shanks isn't WillowD. So it's some interesting ideas, but I'm going to try and go over a lot of the different ones. There's one that I haven't seen anybody touch on yet, and it might connect as to why Shanks has red hair. We'll definitely.
I have a video on that now. Not up yet, but I'm excited to see yours on it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I think red means royalty, right? And so, like, a royal lineage is all I'm gonna say, but it could definitely be something that's very important.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, especially in my opinion, tying into, we talked about kingly Haki and Shanks having apparently the strongest conquerors, and if you have the strongest conquerors in the series, that kind of makes you the greatest king. And what does that ultimately lead to, right? In my opinion, the empty throne. And so the throne is empty. Why? Because it's the person that should be sitting on it isn't sitting on it. I'm just gonna get into it now because I don't even know if I'm gonna get down to the making the video, but the person that should be sitting on the throne isn't sitting on it. Maybe there's a lineage a family that should be sitting on that throne, and it's just been vacated because there's no heir, right?
Mm.
There's no one there's no one that inherited, or they haven't found the descendant or whatever it is that should be sitting there. And the person, maybe if they do know who that is, doesn't want it, right? The concept of not wanting to rule or conquer anything. If Roger feels that way, if Luffy feels that way, then shouldn't the other in between person that had the straw hat also feel that way? And so imagine if Shanks was a descendant of such and such. That's all. I guess that's all I'll say. I'm sure people can already guess what I'm saying.
Mm.
It's not related to Imu per se, somebody else. But imagine if he was supposed to be sitting on that throne, and they, because it's you, Shanks, because it's you, as we keep on hearing from Sengoku, from the Gorosei, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Maybe because it's you means that he is of a royal blood from someone that I have in mind, that he's supposed to be sitting on that throne, but he doesn't want to, and neither would Luffy, and neither would Roger. And so it's being, occupied currently by Imu. It also ties back into the fact that some people have inherited wills of this supposed person, whereas some people are descended, just like, Ace had inherited, or just like, Luffy's had inherited Roger's will, but Ace was descended from Roger. So it'd be interesting to see that. There's also a scene of just another hint for your audience of the mermaid princess, right? Or you have Otohime talking about the person that will guide Poseidon and guide, everybody towards this end game. Right. And in the image that they're showing, right, you see the person that they're showing.
It looks like Shanks.
It looks like Shanks. Yeah. And so, but we all know who that person is actually supposed to be, right? So that's all I'm gonna say. Right. So yeah, that's what the video was basically going to be about. I think it'd be an insane idea if that's what the red hair is hinting at. Again, a royal bloodline. And the idea that this person didn't have children is baffling to me, right? So I think that, he definitely had children, descendants, and, somebody had brought up Skypiea, and the who's that guy with the red hair, the long flowing red hair that was opposing Kalgara. And so, yeah, people try to connect Kalgara to maybe Zebek, to what's his name, to Eustace Kid, or to Shanks. I think that there could be something to that. So,
Yeah, that's true. Kalgara. Yeah, I've had one of my first videos is about connecting Garp to Shandia, because he used, like, in his introduction, he used the same weapon as Kalgara, the giant cannonball on a chain, and then also he showed up in like a dog hat, and that was the ancient Shandorans wore the same like dog hats that Garp showed when he first introduced. So I thought it was that interesting. So then if Rocks is also connected that way, that's an interesting. I feel like I've heard of that, but it just, when you brought it up again, it felt fresh, felt very interesting.
I just like the idea that, a person that doesn't want to conquer or rule, that has abandoned any claim to power, and it'd be interesting if he was descended from a certain person, and so he should be sitting there, but he doesn't want it, and so it's currently being occupied by Imu. So the throne is technically still empty, but Imu's just kind of sitting there, right? It's an empty throne because the person that should be sitting there is not. And so.
Yeah. See, that's actually a good segue into this bits donation, which is it said, using Vinland's logic, do you think Blackbeard had conquerors? Because his luck seems to be out of this world. He happened to go into Impel Down and survive Magellan just because of Shiryu. So yeah, like I think there's a big question about, does I think Morge put out a video that Blackbeard doesn't have conquerors, and going forward Haki's everything, and you're saying it conquers the world, but then Blackbeard's also a character that wouldn't relinquish power either. So what do you say about Blackbeard?
So yeah, I guess this is my last commentary. I saw Morge's video and I kind of disagree with it, because I feel as if a better direction for Oda would be for Blackbeard to not have advanced Haki. Right, so Zoro, Luffy, all these higher characters at this point in the story have advanced Haki to some degree, right? I think Sanji should get advanced, observation at some point. Future Sight would be great for him. So imagine combining against Kizaru, Future Sight, and moving so fast you can disappear. I think that would put them on the same level roughly. But in terms of Blackbeard not having conquerors, I don't think there's a need for that, because Blackbeard could have basic arm and Haki, observation, conquerors, and just not be advanced. I think that's perfectly fine because he has the Guranomi, which can basically do something similar and clash with, an advanced conqueror's attack. The idea of him not being a conqueror when his ambition is so great, as Shanks even points out to Whitebeard, this man is doing it alone with his sheer ambition. That's what a conqueror does. Even if you're sneaky here and there and doing other things, Blackbeard has the ambition of a king to be king. And so I'd be surprised if he didn't have conquerors at a basic level, like, his presence can,
Right.
you can feel it, it can influence people, but it wouldn't compare to other characters. I'm fine with that. The idea of him not having conquerors is just like, I don't know what the explanation would be for that, because if it's tied solely to ambition, then Blackbeard has ambition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't see how it's possible that after everything he's done in his life, that he would not have conquerors. Because the thing is, you can't learn it, right? So you go through certain things and then you develop it.
Right, and he's been put up, like, contrasting Luffy, contrasting Shanks, like, he's put against all these other conquerors, right? So it kind of would make sense that, and Ace too, so then it's like, it kind of makes sense, and that's where my idea with, like, the devil fruits might be, like, not substitutions, but we were talking about how, like, a conqueror could maybe create a room, and then when we think about Blackbeard's Yami Yami no Mi, that's essentially creating a room of some sort of darkness, right? And then you talked about how, well, maybe Shanks's conqueror's Haki zapped Aramaki out of his devil fruit power. Is that not similar to what Blackbeard can do with his devil fruit, about essentially negating someone's devil fruit power? It's kind of similar in that regard. And then when we look at the Guro no Mi, even when we saw it in Marineford, the display of it is low key kind of like Rio, and shockwaves also, like the internal damage aspect of it. So it's kind of like these devil fruit powers that he already has kind of, essentially substitute some of the Haki things that might be required out of the advanced versions, right? So yeah, I agree that I think it makes sense that he has conquerors, maybe not the advanced forms, but like we also need, like, do you think we're gonna see Blackbeard like soon in the chapters, or do you think it's just gonna be like Straw Hats now?
So I think we just saw Shanks, and so maybe Oda's gonna take his time with it, but then again, he might just come back from a break. I think he might want to hit us with something big taking place elsewhere. One thing I did want to point out, ParVision, before I leave, is so Randy dropped a point. I saw you and Randy kind of talking in the chat about Kalgara, which we just brought up. And so I do like this idea, because I didn't know about them both using the same attack. It's interesting that if that's true, so it's Kalgara, and then it's, I often forget names. What's his name again? He has long, he's considered Nolan the Liar. So Nolan the Liar.
Nolan.
You can compare him to Usopp, right? And so if you have Luffy with Kalgara, then you have Nolan with Usopp. We know that they were both beefing before they really solidified their friendship. One person was believing in their diehard beliefs, and the other was trying to get them to accept reality. And on the flip, now you have Luffy trying to get Usopp to accept reality of the Going Merry, and Usopp holding to his diehard beliefs. Usopp tends to be a liar, whereas Nolan was actually kind of a truth teller, right? But they called him a liar. So it's kind of like flipping things on their head, but it's a similar relationship, which is interesting. I would like to question, I am just interested in the red hair aspect. Obviously, future generations, a lot of people can be descended from certain people, so we'll see what happens. It's just an interesting connection. Again, the concept of inherited will versus lineage is often played out in Oda's story. So just because characters say the same thing doesn't necessarily mean that they are descended from each other, but the wills could be shared. So who knows, for sure. Right. My last point would be, though, that I think the surprise of a lot of people for Wano was the fact that Eustace Kid didn't seem to have, we got that moment after Killer. Sorry, we got that moment after Killer defeated Hawkins, and a lot of people were expecting, just because how badass Kid looked, right? His tongue was out. He was ready just to go all out, right, against Big Mom, which he kind of did with Law. But we expected some like bigger reveal, right? Because of what Oda seemed like he was building up to, and we got nothing. So what is Oda waiting to show us that can't be showed? Because he said he had said that he didn't want to show us too much until because he didn't want to accidentally give stuff away,
right?
And so I do wonder now, as we approach the end of the story with maybe 3 to 5 years left or whatever it is, when Oda doesn't do certain things as it pertains to what he left out about Zoro, that has a bunch of Zoro stands upset, right? With the sword and with his lineage and everything. Does that tell us too much that could harm the future of the story before we get there? What Eustace Kid? Can he not do what he might have wanted to do because he has to wait and say he's going to do it, but he has to hold off on that till we get to that point in the story where it won't matter anymore about us guessing certain things. Because as Oda pointed out, Oda's acutely aware that there's a lot of us out there now that actively, whether you're a YouTuber or you have a Reddit page or you have a Twitter or whatever site you're on, TikTok or whatever people are doing now, where you're actively theorizing about what's to come. You know, Oda's fully aware that with all these minds out there, somebody's bound to get
crack
something
the code.
right.
Yeah,
it's a probability, right? There's only so many options and everybody's guessing something different. And so I think Oda is holding off on certain reveals because it's just too easy.
Yeah, like Weevil. I think Weevil's one of the main ones that he has a big plan for, and he didn't give us any kind of like breadcrumbs to follow for Weevil. And that could be said for a lot of things, right? I think God Valley is like, you know, the biggest one where he doesn't want to leak any sort of thing. I guess we'll find out with Film Red if he does, like if Shanks ever mentions God Valley or
and Rock's identity too.
Yeah,
Rock's identity must be very important to not reveal it. If he was not related to any character, I think whether it's Buggy's father, Shanks' father, whatever, I think Oda would have just shown us. Why not? But if it is important to somebody, that's why. I think there's somebody in your chats, Par, that's saying his name's Mr. Bushido. He's a member. He's saying does anybody know what time ParVision did the super chat set? So I can dip out if you want, and we can just link up again whenever you do your next video, and I can watch and we can talk about it because your chats asking about the super chats.
Mr. Bushido, I did your super chats earlier on in one go, but for sure, VinlanD will, because you have a few Shanks videos to tackle, and I have one more thing related to the Godfather Shanks thing, but then conquerors Haki one, and I definitely think like in the next few chapters we're gonna get more details about. I think we're gonna get more details about Shanks, either directly or indirectly, and then there's all the movie Red stuff. So I would definitely we'll definitely link back up when we gather more information about Shanks and then reconvene on that. That'd be dope. Definitely would love to have the opportunity again.
Okay.
But yeah, so thank you VinlanD for coming onto the stream for Voice of All Things. Hopefully you had a good time. Hopefully the chat enjoyed it. I'm gonna stay on and answer more of the super chats. But yo, VinlanD, anytime you want to talk about anything, hit me up. I love having these conversations. I would say if you want to check out the Buggy video, only because of the stuff we talked about in this thing, but we were talking about like fate and like destiny and that kind of thing, and I put out a very interesting video on the straw hat. So like I think I just changed the thumbnail, but it says like straw hat, and I think it's a quicker video. I would definitely recommend that one on fate and destiny and the connections, because it connects to Shanks and Luffy in a way and adds to like the fuel of like the guidance and responsibilities that Shanks might have had to uphold. But I'm definitely excited to see your next videos on with Shanks. The way you were teasing it made me really excited in this episode. It was funny because you're like, you were like I might as well just talk about it now. I don't even know if I'll get a chance to make this video. So that was really fun. But yeah, I won't keep you too much longer. If you want to have like a last thing to message to the chat, to the viewers.
No, yeah. So if you're here from my channel, or if you see this later, because I put a link out on my channel, subscribe to ParVision. Great content, great ideas, very unique. Some comparing to Morge, I've heard, but he has his own kind of lane with all those panels piling up at each other, blocking the screen like a collage. But yeah, it was great being here. Great conversation. I'm glad I have more time now to actually link up with people. I remember I told Brad I just don't have a lot of time to be doing this, but now a lot of time is freed up to an extent. So yeah, it was good talking to everybody. It was good being here. Shout out to everybody in the chat, my subscribers, your subscribers, and I'll see you all next time.
All right. Thank you, VinlanD. All right. So we are back. Let's see. Let me swap it back to this view. Yo, VinlanD his voice is just so like it was awkward to say it to him. I mean, obviously he's probably still in the thing, but his voice is so. He's Conqueror's voice. He needs to voice. If they don't have him voice over like the narrator of the last saga, I don't know what we're doing, right? Like, they should definitely contact him. So I'm gonna be going through the super chats. And that's the other thing. Usually I can read the chat and listen to the guest or conversation at the same time, but the conversation was so captivating, like, you know, deep thinking, that like it was definitely could not split my focus like I usually am. That is a Conqueror's like ability for sure. Yo, Oscar, stop trying to call me out while VinlanD's in the chat. But yeah, like, and again, like, he has clearly like the Shanks videos, and I am so excited. One of the cool things was that when I posted my Shanks video, he was one of the first like viewers essentially to see the thing, and he brought up a lot of points, and we didn't get to talk about it, but he brought up this point, and I'm gonna get to super chats. I'm probably gonna stream for like, you know, until like after 7, so like 30-40 minutes probably, so I'll get to the super chats for sure. He brought up in this thing that I always in his recent video that I always like think about, where it's like, this is the Roger pirate Jolly Roger, and it's like, you know, like Luffy's like the straw hat, right? It's a symbol of him, and like Shanks is the scar on his eye, right? Which is an interesting point, because it's like Shanks got a scar from Blackbeard prior to becoming a pirate, and then that became the symbol of his crew. But like, who is this? Like, why is this a thing? Like, did someone have a mustache? Isn't this Orlumbus? Does Orlumbus have that kind of mustache? I feel like somebody had this mustache. Orlumbus. Was it Orlumbus? No, it wasn't Orlumbus. Somebody had this kind of mustache, and now I'm like thinking, yo, was that Roger's? Like, was that Roger's inspiration? Because like Shanks was Luffy's inspiration, the straw hat that became the symbol, and I don't know, like Big Mom's flag looks like Big Mom's, so why does Roger's look like that? It's so interesting. And then also Roger's flag also has this weird like notch on the thing, so it's very interesting. Haki, you're right, because when he recruited Rayleigh, he didn't have facial hair. Yo, that's facts. Roger didn't have... Wait, hold on. Wait, Roger was a baby when we first saw... Not a baby, but, you know, like, clean shaven. Not saying if you're clean shaven, you're a baby. I'm just... Okay, I'm going to pause there, but, like, where did we see him, Roger, in his youth? Yeah. Whose mustache is this? And VinlanD talks about it in the video, like, but like, I like to think that this was somebody, like, is this, imagine if we get the drop that Rox had this mustache, that'd be kind of wild. Mr. Bushido with the okay, so I'm gonna go through the super chats. Let's start with this one. Corey, $20 super chat, thank you. Sorry I didn't see this earlier. Hopefully you're still here, Corey. In episode 1029 when Garp, yo, thank you, Jason, for the joining as a visionary. Congrats on 20k subs. Keep up the great work, appreciate you, Jason. Appreciate you. So Corey's super chat. In episode 1029, when Garp told Luffy, you have to be the strongest marine, do you think it has different meaning? Like, Garp wants Luffy to be the strongest marine so he can change the corruption within the world government. I like to think so. When I watched that this episode, I thought very much the same thing, where it was like, essentially that Garp, one way or the other, I think he sees the world government as the safest route. I think that's what it's like. And so to survive in the world, the safest route is to be a strong marine. You're on the strongest world power, you're within this realm, you know, like, how many times have we heard of an admiral dying, you know, like, we haven't, but you heard of pirates dying, being executed, and hunted and stuff like that. But until Buggy, admirals were relatively like you don't mess with the admirals, right? So one way or the other, I think Garp was, wanted Luffy on the safer side. Now, is Garp the one to think that, like, the way to change the system is within it? Yeah, or maybe the only reason why I say maybe is because Garp himself never really, like, did anything towards that, like, path, right? So hold on, my thing just started lagging out. I guess that super chat is what lagged me out. I mean, it's not the super chat's fault. It's just the moment the sound played, my Google Chrome just kind of like froze. I'm glad this didn't happen while Ragnar was here or VinlanD was here. Another thing with the VinlanD's take about Shanks is like being a Shanks fan, but then also wanting him to die. Not wanting him, but like to believe that he'll pass away and then being excited by it. He was saying that his viewers saying that he's biased towards that kind of thing. But in general, right, I think that allows him to have a more realistic perspective, right? Because like if he likes Shanks a lot, then he would probably also be thinking of thematic ways and narrative ways for Shanks to continue living. But that's my thing. It's like I made the Godfather Shanks theory. I still like Shanks. It doesn't mean I don't like Shanks. Yeah, it's very interesting. So here, let me scroll back to the original super chat. So Boss D Jinbei, I saw this earlier. So this is the Duval Morge everyone speaks highly about. That's not the comparison. I mean, what? So me and Morge are gonna have a stream in August 22nd, and is he gonna rearrange me to make me handsome Duval? Is that what's gonna happen? I think it's gonna be flip. I'm gonna be the good Morge, and I'm gonna fix the heart. Oh, my camera froze. Okay, hold on. I fixed it. Should be fixed now. But I'm gonna be hopefully the good positivity, the energy that changes evil Morge's way, because he himself said he's the good Morge, he's the evil Morge, and he's the evil ParVision. So hopefully get that fixed up. But thank you for the super chat, boss D Jinbei. Yeah, so Mr. Bushido, we went through these ones. Okay, X Drake will join. So Mr. Bushido with the €2. X Drake will join in 10:58 with Carrot. All or nothing. All or nothing is kind of crazy. X Drake, I never figured that he would join. I figured that he would accompany the crew. Him more so like Law isn't a straw hat, but he joined the journey, right? That's kind of the way I kind of see it. Now, Carrot joining, I don't know. I don't know if at this point, like, her joining would be better for her character. I think it's better for her character to take on the responsibility of being the queen of the dukedom, right? And then going through her own in-story time skip where she returns as this powerful unit, right? I would prefer that rather than because if you would want Carrot on the Straw Hat crew at this point, you're basically asking for more of what we already got of Carrot's treatment. And Carrot's treatment has been so much like, it's kind of been like Carrot's just like this side character, this non-factor that like has been loosely tied with the Straw Hat. She's been there, but she hasn't impacted the story in like a meaningful way. And so if she continues to be on the Straw Hat crew, I would imagine Oda's not going to give more emphasis. It would just be more of the same thing of like being teased as Carrot is a Straw Hat, where I think it'd be more beneficial for a character to be like, yeah, let's bring you back later on in a more impactful role rather than being like a lookout or, pet of the crew, or whatever people wanted her to be. And instead that, come back as a queen, come back as a powerhouse, come back as the leader of the Minx, the person who's going to bring the dawn for the Minx tribe, right? I think that makes a lot of sense. But X-Drake joining a company makes sense to me because he seems to be the character in the Supernovas that has the most tie of the world government, and we're going to be dealing with the world government. IMO, the way they handle Kara was extremely good. I think it makes sense. The Kara will have her moment. Yeah, I think Kara will have her moment for sure. What I'm more so saying is that it doesn't need to be as a straw hat or on the crew. If it's on the crew, that's one thing, but she doesn't need to be on the crew to have her moment, right? Because for sure they're gonna bring back the Pedro, Will of P, like her having the moment, Mr. Bushido super chat another. Oh wow, okay. Yarouge, thank you for the super chats. Another €2. Yarouge would be the 10th Titanic. Moria is the 11th. The numbers, I think Oda wants to just have 10. I don't know if it has to do with like 10 commandments or something like that. I don't know. Or is it 9 commandments? Something like that, right? But very interesting. With Carrot, Mr. Bushido, €2 super chat. Carrot eats Conjuro's devil fruit and will make a moon. Yo, I would like Conjuro's fruit to be recycled, but also it's really too powerful. It's kind of really broken. I don't know what the limit of it is. It's kind of strong, and so I don't know if Oda would want to reintroduce it. Do we get confirmation that Conjuro's dead? Like, he kind of fizzled out, right? But like, do we get confirmation of his death? Which is kind of weird. Now I think about it. I mean, we didn't get confirmation on Orochi other than like the recent interview saying that 8 heads is him. So if you decapitate all of them, then we're through. Time Lord with the bits. How do you think Doflamingo will play a part in the final saga? Do you think he'll ally with the Cross Guild to try and further destabilize the world government, becoming the man selling secrets and marriage law to worlds from the shadows? It's possible. I think Doflamingo partners with somebody, right? If we're bringing back Crocodile, we're bringing back Doflamingo. How is that happening? We're not sure, right? Some people think it's with Blackbeard. He's the 10th Titanic, right? I think we might have talked about that earlier in this conversation with VinlanD. But then there's also the idea that, the bounties might be because of Doflamingo. The bounties being Crocodile's idea. I liked Randy's idea with that, but with the bounty system of it, Doflamingo could be involved there. Now, yeah, I think one way or the other he's coming through, and it makes more sense to me on the Cross Guild side, because it's just like if we're having Mihawk there, Doflamingo could be there, because Doflamingo interacted with Crocodile at Marineford. I think they all interact with Mihawk too, so I think Mihawk and Crocodile clashed, which is weird. So what role? I think Doflamingo ultimately ends up becoming like a good person, which is weird, but I think it's kind of like not ultimately like a good person, but like he kind of acts on the side of good ultimately. Oh, which is something I wanted to bring up with VinlanD. Ah, damn, I forgot to bring this up. The idea that Blackbeard and Luffy might end up working together, or that being a requirement, but it's fine. We'll have more conversations later. As VinlanD said, he's more open to conversations, making more time now. I don't think we had confirmation that Hawkins died, right? We don't. I didn't even realize he died on the panel that he saw, and I felt mad goofy, but the chat was like, yeah, he's dead. I was like, all right, we're just gonna believe it then. So guess we're there, right? Wano should find and recycle all the devil fruits and dead characters. So that's Will of Dreams. That's why I think Oda doesn't kill characters. It's to avoid the unnecessary plot hole of having the availability of the fruits recycled, right? Because when you think about it, if Luffy killed every person he faced, then we would people would be like, oh, Enel's fruit would be in this person, that person, Enel's coming back. And we already have such a huge sentiment of people wanting Enel to come back in the story. And that's with him not even being dead, right? He's alive and blah, blah, blah. But then when characters are dead, like Kaido and Big Mom, it's like we still think they're gonna come back, right? But had Oda killed them off, then you deal with the issue. It's like, what happened to their fruits? We know they recycled, so is someone gonna come back with it? And it kind of plugs that plot hole of everyone's just alive. It's fine. The fruit's not gonna recycle. And then the other part of it is that Oda designs these characters so well with the fruit, that for the fruit to then get transferred to somebody, he would have to put an equal amount of effort into designing this character in a way that encompasses the fruit, right? With Big Mom and Kaido, we already got like those things. So ParVision, you got to read my Shiki and Drake theories on Discord. They will 100% blow your mind. Yeah, I'll definitely, once I get a chance to check the other theories, I'll get to it, Mr. Bushido. Let's see. When does Broly come to the show? Broly's coming soon, bro. Honestly, the last 1028, that Kaido showing, if you watch the watch party when I was viewing it, it felt like they were making Kaido seem like he could fight Broly. Like, that's how terrifying and strong he looked in 1028. Like, the demon time Kaido looked like he could box with Broly. I'm not gonna lie. But okay, so back with the super chats. JP Legend, JD Legend's burner account here, I see. Thanks for stopping by. Thank you for the bits. Just came from watching film Red. Now I really want to see the Straw Hats versus Red Hair Pirates. Yo, Godfather Shanks too. You gotta put on. Oh, and then VinlanD's recent video and our future videos. It's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice. But no Volume 4 Billion or Film Red spoilers in the chat, please. Thank you, mods, for I saw deleting some things. I didn't get to read them, so definitely helping out. Nick Scott Page with 100 bits says, does Yasop seem like a conqueror to you two? Ah, damn, I'm sorry, I didn't get to ask this question. Yasop does not seem like a conqueror to me. If anything, I think if Shanks is gonna be the showing of conquerors, Yasop and Ben Beckman might be showings of like other forms of observation Haki, because I feel like Shanks is going to show us some observation Haki stuff that we won't understand until it's explained, like the mind robe stuff and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think as of right now, Yasop doesn't seem like a conquerors, and I gotta ask VinlanD for you, and I'll bring it up in a future stream. Matt Cypher, okay, I asked this question earlier. Time Lord, have either of you seen Preach's Marine Civil War video? What do you guys think of it? Yes, I watched it. I don't know about VinlanD. When Preach came onto the show, onto the stream, the Voice of All Things with Preach, we did talk about the Civil War stuff, because I was telling him with my Amatsuki theory, right? I was talking about how the Void Century might have been engulfed in civil wars, and we were looking at different islands, and so we didn't get to talk too much about it, but we talked about the civil war within the world government, and it's a growing sentiment, I think. With the introduction of Black Horse Kuroma, I think civil war within the world government is more and more likely. Got to Corey's chat. Mr. Bushido with the super chat, €2. How did Buggy join the crew? Like the Rogers Pirates? I mean, it seems like he was adopted like Shanks, right? It was a year apart, essentially. We don't know when or where, but it seems like a similar context, to say the least, because they were two peas in a pod. Got to Jason's member thing. Thank you again for congratulating. The 20K was a dope milestone. According to Social Blade, 2 months ago, it was expected in like October or December, so I forget when exactly, but we're here now. Mr. Bushido super chatted another €2. Thank you, Mr. Bushido. My monkey theory says Roger and Garp were in Rocks. Oh, I saw that one. I remember that one. That's definitely a fun one. Oh, and then for you guys who are watching the stream, if you guys are enjoying it, like the stream, but also 3A has been putting my Discord link. Definitely join the Discord, because we got a lot of people throwing out theories, ideas. I try my best to stay on top of everything right now, but as I keep saying, like, the more I spend time on Discord, the less videos I can put out. So I'm definitely on my grind again to get these videos out. But then we have Muhammad with the $5 super chat. Shanks got his scars on purpose so he could have a cool Jolly Roger. Could you imagine that? He's just like, I'm gonna be a pirate, and you know what a pirate needs? It needs branding. And you know what I'm gonna do to get branding? I'm gonna get branded by all these pirates, and then I'm gonna incorporate it on my Jolly Roger. Honestly, it's kind of interesting, right? Like, I assuming this, you brought this up when I was saying how Blackbeard gave him the scar, and that seems to be prior to Shanks becoming a pirate, because his Jolly Roger incorporates the scar. So unless Shanks changed his scar as he became a pirate, or changed his Jolly Roger as he became a pirate, then it seems like Blackbeard gave it to him prior to Shanks making his own crew, which is, you know, an interesting like timeline of things. I really want to know the context of Shanks just in general. A whole spin-off like of Shanks would be dope for sure. Oh nice, I'm caught up. Matt Cypher with the bits. Dofi was good to his people, like he would kill anyone that laughed at his people, his crew, not his constituents. As long as they didn't betray him, he didn't care. It was very much like Roger. I wouldn't say it's like Roger to that extent, because he was also kind of abusive, right? Like, yeah, he wouldn't necessarily, he would defend his crew, but he would also harm his crew, right? And then we see that with like Baby 5, Buffalo, their treatment, the way, I think he was willing to kind of just like, you know, they were self-sacrificial in a lot of ways, and Doflamingo kind of was just like, don't really need you, that kind of thing. But you know, the family thing, obviously there's definitely I'm gonna make a video in the future about the concept of family in One Piece, so it's gonna be an interesting thing when I put out that video. It's more of a funny video. It's like an idea. It's not a funny video, it's an idea that's funny, and I wonder if Oda ever like considered this thing, because I think he did. And it connects back to Hidden Islands video about like the world government being pirates and that kind of thing. I'm gonna put it there, and then Time Lord said there were spoilers. Yeah, just ban them. It's in the thing. Let's see. Mr. Bushido, Carrot being queen feels like a fake out from Oda. The reasoning makes no sense. I disagree with the reasoning making no sense. I talk about it in my podcast thing, and so I briefly talked about it with like Brago said it made no sense, and Sai said it made no sense. But then after they heard my logic, they're like, okay, that makes sense. But you know, but at the end of the day, and I agree with this, Carrot's not qualified for it, but the reasoning does make sense in my opinion. And so that goes back to, if you guys don't know, I'm doing chapter reviews as a podcast, so !podcast to go to my podcast. And so that was chapter 1056, 1055, whatever one with Carrot. I talk about why I think it does make sense that the Dukes said what they said about Carrot, but again, not discarding the point that she is she's not the best mink for it, and they address that in the thing too. Oda's fake outs are a fake out. Yeah, honestly, you know, not false. Just double checking. I went through all the super chats. But yeah, I just want to thank, if like Randy's still here, thank you for stopping by. VinlanD, again, really appreciate you as a guest. I'll probably, it's closing on 7. I'll stay around, talk to the chat. There was a lot of, so I'm going to be on that One Piece talk tomorrow. So the stream, once the stream ends, it'll take you directly to the stream tomorrow. So I'll be coming into the studio with that One Piece talk. And then this will be like, you know, the weaning off of the collaboration thing. I think the last main one is Morge next Monday. But once I drop off on the collab stuff, I can focus more again on my videos. So there's a few videos coming up. Pluton one, Elemental Haki one, Conquerors one. And I have a few other ones in between that I really want to get to. But ParVision should want Carrot because carrots are good for your vision. That's true. That is true. Carrots are vitamin A. Very good. The beta carotene. Very good for you. Vitamin A is through fat primarily, but beta carotene, that is much better. Eduardo, what's up Eduardo? You think Yamato will join the crew? If he wants to be Odin, he must ride with the King of Pirates. What do you think? Is he stronger than Jinbei? Yes, Yamato's stronger than Jinbei. Can Jinbei box with Yamato? Yes. I don't know the difficulty, but it just makes sense to me that, like, I just don't see Jinbei stalling Kaido as long as Yamato did, right? I think that Zoro has higher damage output ability, but Yamato's durable and is more durable than Zoro and can be put on that tier. And so in that context, yeah, like, I think Yamato is like Zoro or Zoro plus, greater than or equal to Zoro. Could Zoro beat Yamato? Yeah. So, like, it's a weird thing, for sure. But I think Yamato is a special case for sure. Now, will join the crew. I originally didn't think Yamato would. In the recent chapters, I was feeling like, yes, it was gonna happen. Obviously, everything after Onigashima, it was like she's crewmate, the way she caught Luffy, everything up until the last panel that we got with Yamato, like, hesitating, like, not hesitating, but kind of like, I made up my mind, and just, I talked about it with Brago on that thing and with Sai, and it was kind of like that one part, the way we ended it off, it felt like Oda was trying to create a window where Yamato doesn't join. And so now, if Yamato doesn't join, it has to be for an incredibly powerful reason. Whereas, had all the stuff after Onigashima raid succeeded, had that stuff not happened, I would say Yamato not joining the crew makes sense, right? But even now, like, you can say, like, we haven't seen her interact with the crew, the time skips, it's not been emphasized, all those things. But that last panel where she's, like, sitting on top and, like, the crew already left her, didn't even, like, talk, whatever, it kind of is like, maybe she's not going to join the crew. And again, I didn't put out the video. Did I put out the video? No, I didn't put out the video, where I was basically saying originally, I always thought that Yamato would be better if wherever Momo goes is where I think Yamato should go. Why? Because Yamato is the expert on Kaido's fruit. Of any character besides Kaido, Yamato would know that, besides maybe King, Yamato should know that fruit the best, and so Momo would need to train that fruit. So she would play a good role as his mentor. And then there's also the other part where being a conqueror, and then, you know, that kind of thing. I think it, like, martial arts in general, right? Yeah, Kinemon can teach Momo, but Momo is looking for, like, Zoro, and, like, Yamato could also be very helpful in that regard. Zoro can bleed more. Zoro has to be far tankier than Yamato. Zoro could be tankier than Yamato, but from what we saw, Zoro versus Kaido is much more of a volatile situation for Zoro than it is with Yamato. But what we also saw in that regard is that in less time, Zoro is able to put out more damage and create more fear in Kaido than Yamato throughout the entire fight that Yamato had with Kaido. But could Zoro last the same duration of time? We don't know, because Zoro's line of logic was like, there's no point in dragging this on. I gotta try our best, right? And he put out his best, and he couldn't get Kaido to bend a knee even. But that being said, he was able to make him bleed. He was able to make him dodge. Yamato, I don't think, did any of that. So that's why I say it's a hairy situation, because there's in every category, there's an example of Zoro and Yamato doing something that the other one didn't. So that's kind of what it is. Next character to die or be killed off. Wait, I think my stream is lagging. I think it should be good now. Next character to die or be killed I I don't know if this is next, but I feel like Garp is gonna die too. It just feels like an impactful person that's probably gonna die. If Katakuri dies, Garp is gonna die. If Katakuri dies, it might be interesting. But I don't know if Katakuri dies. So Yasop couldn't conquer father. Facts. Let's see. Yamato would have died at Thriller Bark. Yeah, I mean, we don't know. I mean, also Moria was like clashing with Kaido and then he was nerfed. It'd be interesting to see if Moria is brought back in a stronger way. Like, if Moria comes back in the story, like Moria's not dead and Kaido's not dead, would we be shown a situation where Moria and Kaido face off as like a throwback, like kind of like a Marineford? We were like, how is Crocodile just boxing with Mihawk and Doflamingo, right? Like he doesn't even have Haki. How's this happening, right? Like, do you think we're gonna see that with Moria, where he just gets scaled up after time skip? If he's a character, you know, he could just be a gravestone right now. But how did Moria find Ryoma's grave if it was in Old Wano? Well, it wasn't in Old Wano. Ryoma, even from context clues, it was sounded like it was post Void Century. So Old Wano was Void Century, a result of the Void Century, essentially. Where after the Void Century or during it, they had to maneuver to the new Wano. But Ryuma was defending it thereafter. And so in a magazine, it said 400 years ago, but even without I don't think the 400 years is canon, because the magazine's weird, third party, whatever. But that being said, with the timeline, it sounded like Ryuma was defending Wano after the borders were closed. So we know that Kozuki closed off the borders during the Void Century, or after the Void Century at some point, and then once the border was closed, Ryuma defended the border. So that was after the Void Century. We don't know how recent, but so that's after they already left Old Wano. So his grave is definitely, I think, on New Wano, and it's not in Old Wano. Garp's death would be sad, and I think that's why. I think Garp is being lined up to die. I don't know. It's just the feeling. It's like a mix between subliminal messaging from cover stories and just ideas and headcanons. I haven't made a full video. It's just like, there was one of my first videos, chapter 1025 analysis of the cover spread, and it was for TikTok, and so yeah, I talked about it there. Yamato needs to teach him Devil Fruit and possible conquerors Haki. Yamato learn Eternal Hyogoro. Hyogomuri. Wait, who's Hyogomuri? Hyogomoru. Hyogoro? But yeah, I want to see more Hyogoro, honestly. Yamato knows Kaido as well. She is more experienced than Zoro in dealing. Yeah, for sure. Two Goats vibin', ParVision. Yeah, VinlanD here earlier, vibin'. It was dope. It was fun. Yamato might have held on longer because experience fighting Kaido. Yeah, that too. I think at the end of the day, that is, in and of itself, is a feat, right? Like, we know that Yamato has endured Kaido's sparring, right? If you're for example, if you're a spar this is a meme now, but if you're sparring with Muhammad Ali, you might not even have your own record, but if you can withstand, if Muhammad Ali respects you enough to spar with you, that's a big ups, right? And that's in the NBA too, right? There's a bunch of players who are bench players who are eons better than any, like, you know, person who thinks they can be in the NBA, like, you know, like the backseat, you know, basketball players on the couch, you know, shitting on a bench player, and it's like the bench players are really dope because, you know, you spar with them, right? And like we see it in pickup games and like practice games where it's like these people pop off, and, you know, if you're sparring, sure, that's one word for reviews, exactly. But at the end of the day, being able to be in that is I think a testament to how strong you are, right? Garp is 100% dying to Akainu. One way or the other, I think Garp is dying to Shanks. That is what that cover spread analysis was saying. Basically, the cover spread had Kaido with Odin, Big Mom with Katakuri, Blackbeard with Ace, Shanks with Garp. So it had the 4 Yonko, and it had a character. And so we know Kaido killed Odin, and we know essentially Ace was killed by Blackbeard, essentially. And then I was saying, like, oh, what if Big Mom kills Katakuri and also Shanks kills Garp? And the reasoning was like paralleled more ways than one. It was kind of crazy, and there was more meaning in the thing in that video. Honestly, I could put it up if you guys want me to, but it was an oldie but goodie. I don't even think most of you guys even watched it because it was like my second video of all time. But yeah, trying to think if there's any other announcements. Yeah, 10:57 knock-up stream this week, Thursday, so that's gonna be exciting. Put it up. Yeah, so I guess I'll just close out the stream with I'll put that up, and then we could talk about it briefly, and then that'll be kind of like the last thing we touch on the stream. We could definitely do that. Let's hold on, give me a second. Oh wow, Mosh put another video up. Cool. I have like 400 tabs open, which is why it's super delayed, super laggy. So let's scroll all the way down. There we go. Did I put it all? Oh wow, I put it all in one part. Honestly, these earlier videos are kind of fun because they're like short and snappy. Yeah, damn, it has 953 views, so we're gonna watch this now then. Let's see. Oh, also keep in mind, I sound way different in these, so be kind. It was very beginning. And so yeah, so this will be like the last thing we generally talk about in the stream. We, bring it up. I just want to thank everyone for being here and, supporting, super chats, donations, the subs, the memberships, providing, conversations for me and VinlanD. And also, again, I always say this, I always look at all the comments as much as I can when I upload the VOD, because I really want to stay connected to the community, and I can't be doing that like on my YouTube comments because people are posting spoilers, and I'm just like, oh, I can't read my own comments. But yeah, so let's pull this up. Let me mute this music, because I think I used to put music in the thing because TikTok didn't care about music. So is this visible? I think it's, let me make it a little bit bigger. Let's see. Let's do that. I think that's visible. Roger is a snail. I don't know about that one. I think he's more of a plant. I'm not gonna lie. All right, so let's start it.
So Oda gave us the super dope spread in chapter 1025. He loves to give hints and details and drops like this. And when I saw this, there was...
Yo, look at this editing. Holy shit, who is this? But damn, my voice.
Chapter 1025. He loves to give hints and details and drops like this. And when I saw this, there was 3 huge predictions that immediately came to me. It would be insane if this happened, but okay, so the first things had to do with the 4 Yonkos on the edge of the drawing. Oda uses a lot of symmetry to create parallels in the story panels. The Asabo Luffy to Roger Whitebeard Odin parallel panels as an example. Based off of this image though, I think Garp and Katakuri are going to die. Also maybe Katakuri has some...
Katakuri gets donutted. Oh my goodness, I was savage. Katakuri has a connection to Roger. Oh, that was another one. Damn.
Going to die. Also maybe Katakuri has some kind of connection to Roger. So starting with the positioning, with the Yonkos on the edge, each Yonko is kind of overshadowed by a larger significant character, who are second in size only really to Luffy in the image. 2 of the 4 characters are dead, and died in an extremely important way, and each death set off a cascade of events that were significant to Luffy. The next thing is 3 out of the 4 characters have a direct relationship with Roger, like as direct can be. So that makes me wonder if Katakuri also shares that. Maybe it has to do with the God Valley incident, or maybe Katakuri idolizes Roger, which would symmetrically oppose Ace, but be similar to how Yamato idolizes Odin, despite being Kaido's son. Also, Katakuri idolizing Roger could explain why he took such a liking to Luffy during their fight.
Yo, what I just thought of... Whoa, hold on. That's kind of... You know how Roger stole Big Mom's poneglyph? And we just kind of assume it's voice of all things, he heard it. But you know how Kid got it? Kid robbed one of the Sweet Commanders to get the poneglyph rubbing. What if Katakuri gave Roger the poneglyph, and that's the connection? That'd be kind of interesting. Like Roger sweet talked Katakuri, and so Katakuri got you know, like the Pedro scene where he's just like, wow, or not the Pedro scene, where in Katakuri at the end of the fight with Big Mom, he's just like, are you going to take out Big Mom? Maybe it was like something like that with Roger and Katakuri had like an example where Katakuri was just like, are you going to take over the world? And he's just like, I don't know. He said something that inspired him, because we do kind of have to figure out why Katakuri, you know, said what he said at the end of the fight. What's up, Dill? Par reviews. So I'm ending the stream with this is my second video of all time. Someone asked like Garp dying, that kind of thing. How much do you believe that Rox was a Lunarian? Personally, I'm 80%. I'm not sure. We can actually watch the other thing. This is funny. Like, I'm cringing. I'm like blocking out what I'm saying, but like I'm like separating myself from the voice. I'm like, okay, this is someone else. This is a different creator. And I'm listening to the other creator say this theory. Okay, so then I'm not cringing as much. So I'm like, oh, wow, that's a great point. But then it's just me. Then it's cringe because I'm like, oh, I'm just... Okay, we're just going to finish watching this video instead of me, like, low-key roasting myself. But be similar to how Yamato idolizes Odin, despite being Kaido's son. Also, Katakuri idolizing Roger could explain why he took such a liking to Luffy during their fight. Yeah. Now, the other aspect is that Ace was killed because he confronted Blackbeard, because Blackbeard betrayed his crew. Blackbeard captured Ace, gave him to the Marines to instigate Marineford, symbolically killing Ace, in my opinion. We just had the Whole Cake Island arc, but it makes me wonder if there's going to be a parallel story where Katakuri confronts Big Mom and ends up dying. What kind of betrayal could Big Mom do? I mean, she's already pretty unhinged, but is there someone that she could kill that Katakuri wouldn't accept, and in whatever future war, he ends up on Luffy's side? Which we can maybe already kind of expect, because it sounded like he low-key wanted Luffy to come back to defeat Big Mom anyways. There's also this brothers angle to this image, where Katakuri and Law parallel Sabo and Ace, maybe meaning that Law and Katakuri are like new brothers. What do I mean by that? Why am I cringing? I'm cringing because it's me. This creator got some fire takes. Yeah, I'm cringing because it's me, you know? And it's like, it's not even a year old me, actually, now I'm thinking about it. I started TikTok, September, so next month. I started TikTok, and then September, October, so I started YouTube like in November-ish, I believe. But I was just uploading my TikToks to YouTube, because people are telling me to. But so I was saying here that Ace and Sabo parallel Law and Katakuri in this image. And Sabo and Law are the alive brothers, and Katakuri and Ace are going to be the dead brothers. And when you think about it, Katakuri does have that like big brother kind of thing. Luffy, which we can let me just rewind a little bit, and then... which we can already kind of see with Law. But yeah, exciting to see if any of these things actually happen. I'll do part 2 on Garp's side of the image in the next video. So part 2 to the chapter 1025 spread about why I think Garp is going to be killed, and to be honest, that would be the kind of death that shakes up a lot of people. No. In so many ways... Oh no, I put a copyright song. Hopefully... Okay, hold on. Let me try, because the only reason why it's an issue is because then when I upload it to YouTube, they're gonna actually, wait, no, this video's still up. It's not. It's fine. It's great. Wait, that's crazy. I just realized this is a... That's it feels like Garp is the last pillar holding up the Marines from going into chaos, and even so many nations. Like Dragon low-key probably restrains himself against the Marines to avoid conflicts with Garp, which I think is crazy, by the way, that Dragon isn't even in this picture. But okay, so starting with the Kaido and Odin relationship. Kaido has various intentions that deal with Odin's territory, Wano. Ultimately, Odin is the biggest counter to Kaido, and as a result, Odin dies to Kaido. Odin's death went on to inspire a generation of samurais, and ironically Kaido's own son, and it's important to note that Yamato Odin's side of things end up putting them on Luffy's side as an ally. So now we take that and go to the parallel side of this image to Shanks and Garp.
So we have no idea what Shanks wants to do, what kind of role he has in the One Piece world, but from this image, it feels like it's anti-marine or world government because he is countered by Garp here. Kaido wanted to take over Wano, make it his headquarters, and make the people subservient to him. Is that what Shanks wants to do with the world government, which means he would want to replace Im? I'm not sure, but because Garp and Oden are symmetrical here, it feels like Garp is going to die because he is an obstacle in Shanks' overall plan. His death will mobilize a whole faction of the world government, and the characters next to Garp that parallels Yamato is Kobe, as in Kobe will carry on Garp's legacy. Which, when I think of Yamato, Yamato's role is to carry out what Oden couldn't do, which is open up Wano and support Joy Boy. What is the role that Garp couldn't do, but Kobe could do? Maybe that's support Luffy, who high-key, especially ever since the time skip, has been doing what the world government should be doing, and that was highlighted in the Dressrosa arc, and at the Reverie arc also. I'm honestly not sure about this theory, but if you think about the important characters that would make sense to die, Garp makes a lot of sense. And then he's on the other side of Oden. This image really gets me curious about what Shanks is going to do. He is such a mystery, and I can't wait to find out how Shanks fits into everything.
Yeah, I mean, when you kind of think about it, right, with the whole Garp thing, or the Shanks thing, yeah, well, this is the pre-Godfather Shanks theory. Damn, I was always on this trend, I guess. Shanks is just wants to replace Im through Luffy, right? So, and when you think about it, Garp is in the he wants Luffy to become a Marine. Hold on. Wow, revisiting this theory, I kind of just I didn't even revisit it on myself. Also, the other point of Oden and Yamato is supposed to carry on Oden's will in that regard, and then Garp and Kobe were right there. So, very interesting. Go bald. Why would I go bald? Katakuri's in sword? Maybe. Wait, QOKCIY? What does that mean? Garp is in the losing team. Yeah, I think so. It's gonna be sad. That's for sure. I'm so interested to know what will happen to Big Mom's crew. Yeah, we're kind of in the dark about that, right? Like, that's one of the things that's like, you know, when people say Oda's rushing, like, I don't necessarily agree, but unless we get an understanding of what happened to her crew, I don't know. You're crossing the chat. I'm talking to you too. Oh, I got you. I see it now. Damn, it would be cool if Twitch could let you do that, but it obviously wouldn't. Young Dragon appears in one panel only, and we can theorize so much about that one panel. That's what's great about One Piece. We get so many foreshadows and trip so much about it. Yeah, I agree. That is the magic of One Piece. That's for sure. Earlier, since we talked about Garp and Dragon's connection to Skypiea, and then someone asked me, what was it? It was the Lunarian thing. Rocks being Lunarian. I could see it. Here, let's watch this one now.
So, continuing the theory that Dragon has innate air control rather than a wind devil fruit, honestly, I'm still iffy on this idea. Maybe we'll learn about a group of people that have innate air control later on, but I definitely think there might be a group with air control for a weird reason. It's because of the different element dials that we saw in Skypiea. I think
so. Pausing. This is prefacing. So someone I started on TikTok. The TikTok is where I started, and then people told me to go on YouTube, and I was like, what? There's YouTube for this? That's dope. And then I looked it up and I saw Murphy's video. I think I saw Tekking's video. I was like, I guess I could do this. And then, so the elemental Haki theory was my first like YouTube video. Prior to that, it was TikTok videos. And so this video is prefacing the elemental Haki video I made on TikTok. So I was essentially creating a line. Talking. Yeah, that's the TikTok world. So I could talk this fast, but what I was doing is I sped it up. So I think in my first videos, I was talking really fast, and I was like, I could do that, or I could just talk and pronunciate a little bit better and then speed it up. And so that's what we get here. Actually, no, wait, hold on. This one might still be me talking really fast. Let me listen to it again.
Those dials are actually important in the sense they kind of feel similar to devil fruits, a sea-based creation that provides superhuman powers. But anyways, Skypiea is kind of a central focus of this video. Dragon and Skypiea, question mark? Why does that matter? But some of you might know where I'm going with this. I think Dragon has a hard connection to Skypiea. Starting off with the obvious, Dragon's tattoos. Tattoos aren't all that common in One Piece, in that when they're shown, it's emphasized. Outside of that, the only group of people that have tattoos that we've seen is the Shandians on Skypiea. Their tattoos share similar color scheme and style to dragons. But who else? Nola, the dragon-like god and named Master of the Sky. Look at the tattoo markings on the side of Nola. Also, Dragon low-key looks like he is Shandian, with his hairstyle on top of his tattoos. If Dragon was from there, he'd probably have wings though, but we wouldn't know since he's always been cloaked. Or maybe he isn't from there, but he got his tattoos from being accepted by the Shandians. I had this idea that maybe Luffy's mom was Shandian, and that Aizo is low-key Luffy's like half-sister or cousin, especially since she had a high affinity for hearing the voice of all things, like Luffy. But nah, all of those feel a little soft. I was reaching for the Skypiea arc because it felt really important, and honestly, when in the recent manga they talked about Nika, the sun god, and showed the image.
I remember, I said manga at the beginning. I knew it was manga, but when I was talking, I said manga. And I remember all the comments saying, like memeing the way I said it. That was a good time. Pronunciation's never been my forte.
Talked about Nika, the sun god, and showed the image, I immediately thought of the Skypiea celebration. I think it was because Oda recently said that it was one of his favorite panels to ever draw. Then, when I reread the surrounding chapters, I saw this. Who is that? Isn't that Garp? Nope. This is Garp. That's the Shandia chief. Garp used to wear a dog hat over his head, apparently to hide his identity from Luffy. But is it a coincidence that Shandoran leaders also wore canine hats over their heads? Also, this might be a stretch, but if Garp were a Shandoran warrior and had the signature eye tattoos of a Shandian warrior, then maybe to hide his past, he cut it off. And then there was another detail that seemed kind of wild, but Garp originally used a signature weapon of a giant cannonball on a chain, and that was also a weapon of choice for Kalgara, the ancient Shandoran warrior. It's interesting that we never got the current Shandian's chief's name, and apparently he is the only person on a V-Ray card ever to not be named.
Isn't that super sus, guys? I still think about this. Oda's given us the V-Ray card and blood type of all these characters and names, and he just didn't give this dude a name. He's just the Shandia chief in V-Ray cards. It's like this dude's name is important for some reason. And it's like, at this point in the story, like, why? Why even make this character important? Just give us the name so we don't have to think about it. But it's like the only character at the time of making this video, and I'm sure it's probably still true, the only character in V-Ray card that isn't given a name. It's the weirdest thing. It's so weird. Like, we got the dude from Skype, Weatheria, right? Like, does Nami even ever say his name? Like, I'm sure it gets introduced, but we don't need the dude's name. But Oda went out of his way in V-Ray cards, told us he's from Burka, and told us the name. It's like, why? Why? Right? Me is the opposite of Eam. Usopp also made a Nika pose after jumping from... Yes. Monkey D. Chief. Yeah. So after this, I say something wrong. Garp is older than this guy. So I say that he could be a little brother, but in what I really mean to say, when I should have fact-checked it better, was that they're related somehow.
Ever to not be named. What if Garp was like his little brother, or maybe even his son?
Yeah.
I thought it was weird that the Shandian chief didn't have kids, which is where possibly Luffy's family tree fits in. It would also make a lot of sense for Garp's acceptance of the state of the world, where he is happy that there's peace, even though he was upholding so many corrupt systems. If he came from Shandora, where it was constant fighting and war, anything would be an improvement. In any case, I don't know how the wings work. Maybe you could just rip them off and they don't grow back. But having the
wings one was important. I remember when King lost his wing, it was cut off. I remember, like, in my chapter review thing, I was saying, this is huge because will the wing grow back? Is that how wings work? Because we have a bunch of characters that just don't have wings anymore, but they're of these sky races, like Enel. Enel doesn't have wings. Gonfal doesn't have wings. The Harades from Weatheria doesn't have wings, but he's Birkin. So it's like, how do you, if you like dilute your bloodline, do you not get wings, or can you have wings and you just rip them off and they don't grow back? And like that goes to, like, is Mr. One Lunarian because he you know has the melanin, and then he also has white hair, and like all he's missing is the wings, and then he could be a Lunarian, maybe that'd be cool. But like that's why I was like, I shout out this video in that review. I was like, damn, we finally might get the information about these wings. That's why Hitetsu was so important until we found out it was just a costume. Not like we knew the mask was a costume, but the wings part being like also an attachment. That was, a very interesting thing.
Shandian lineage could explain the high affinity for the forms of Haki and the voice of all things. Also, the mysteries behind the Shandian race, which originated on the moon, could be an explanation for how Dragon gained an affinity with the elements. If black-winged Lunarians have affinity for fire, maybe the white-winged Shandians have an affinity for wind. One Piece has now connected so many parts of the show and powers to the moon. The Minks are empowered by the moon. Lunarian's name is Lunar. The Sky Island remnants are descendants from the moon. The moon controls the ocean and water. There's definitely a mystery that's unwinding, some kind of secret thread that connects all of these factions, including Wano and the Giants, and everything else.
Oh, I guess it just cuts off. Back in the early days, that's how it be. I didn't even have the people wanted to listen, but I didn't have the time. YouTube didn't even give me the time of day to present my information. I think we watched these recently, the Elemental Haki ones. I have to rewatch them again. The Roger one, that one's a fun one. Oh, did I take down my 1,000 sub? Oh, I privated it? Wow. So my Origins video isn't even up. I just realized that. Huh. That's a good one to watch. But yeah, here, let me check out the chat again and then we'll start closing out. 3-day. Bug at Bratier has a name but not the yeah, that's weird, right? Any thoughts on Zoro's reward? What do you mean reward? Now look at you, glowed up. Thank you, Energy Empire. It is quite the glow up. I'm from that One Piece Talk family. Yep, I know KJ. So I'm new to this chat. Let's go, Par. What's up, KJ? Welcome. I'm at the end of the stream, so if you do want to check out the VOD, I haven't mentioned this yet in the stream, but I have the second channel, ParVision VOD, so this gets immediately uploaded as a VOD. So VinlanD was here earlier, had a great conversation with VinlanD. He just has a way with words and a way with everything, explaining so many of the things that we talked about in a beautiful way. Garp Jr. Gorp, yeah, that's what that guy is. My thought on Zoro was the bounty. My thought was Zoro was 990 and then Sanji's 870, but who knows, right? Yeah, 900 would be important because like the Ashura thing, you know? Maybe he's 999. That'd be kind of cool. It's always fun seeing creators watching and reacting to their own content at times. Yeah, going back is definitely a fun thing to do. Like I made some of these shorter videos, like this Zoro tiger form thing. Like that one was an interesting one. Oh, the Lafitte one. I want to make more of these like shorter videos on my channel. And that's what I try to do with this last video with Luffy. Luffy's gonna surprise us. Didn't do too bad. But yeah, oh, and then there's the member videos. Is there another thing? There was something else I wanted to touch back on. Oh yeah, the Mindro video. That's an important one. A lot of these videos, like now I think about it, there's so many things that I like. Going back to the 1025 thing, there's so many little details that, like the Katakuri thing, that being his connection to Roger. That's so interesting because I wouldn't have thought about that without the recent chapter with our understanding of how Kid got the thing from Big Mom, right? Because then that explains like Roger didn't have to fight Big Mom. More so, he just like not jumped, but like interacted with Katakuri. My first video is always my favorite one. I still think that should be a thing. The whip idea. Yeah. He can't be 999 million because that means he'll make Sanji 1 billion. Maybe. Shanks was 1 billion. Yeah, he was 1,040 million. When he met Luffy, which is wild, right? Because he wasn't even a Yonko. So for 6 years later is when he became a Yonko. So he was a 1 bill pirate for 6 years without being a Yonko. Seeing a young cat interact with Roger would be wild. Yeah, I think that'd be dope. I think that'd be sick. Because like we have to figure out what Katakuri's like demeanor is, right? The end of that fight was so interesting in my opinion. Don't worry about how videos do. You'll slip into typical content creator strategies and we're here for your style. The depth of your videos are always amazing. Thank you, Elliot. Thank you. That, you know, I like to look at these. I come back in these old videos every once in a while, and I just like note the growth of these things, because back then the longest video, the Usopp video, 21 minutes, that was so hard to make. And I mean, I wasn't even anticipating that being, it's still my most watched video, which is just absurd to me. But people are talking about it again. I think might be because of Volume 4 Billion. I think Sai was saying, like, I was asking, like, why are people bringing up this video again? And he was saying, like, there's some things about Movie Red. So once I'm privy to that information, I guess I'll understand. But yeah, this was like the first like long video, and even that, like, I could see how I grew from there. And you know, I'll never take down these videos because it's just like, it's like the growth. You finna host Reverie one day, it's inevitable. That'd be dope. That'd be dope for sure. It'd be fun to manifest that. I think like today, talking with VinlanD, just like hearing him talk, like I enjoyed it so much. Like I could for sure just enjoy like being in a position where I can, like, you know, guide the conversation here and there. Today I was guiding VinlanD in the idea that Conquerors Haki and Haki and fruits might collide, and seeing what he thought of, and you know, so very fun. With Shanks insane Haki, do you think Blackbeard could scar him? I don't know. It's so weird. Par's Reverie is going to be 20. If I get hands on Reverie, I'll make a legendary 24-hour Reverie for sure. Where did the beige pirates go? What is that thing? Where is your theory video on that? Oh, you're talking about this. You're talking about, I believe it's 594. I believe it's 594. Are we talking about this? Oh my god, I have so many tabs. Everything's gonna be so slow loading. We talking about this right here, this thing. Oh wow, I remembered it. So I'm assuming you're talking about this, right? Pig to sheep. Let me reread what you wrote. Oh no, not Senju. Sorry, I misread it. Where did beige pirates go? What is that thing? Where's your theory video on that? So the theory video, now I remember, I said I was going to make something on this. It was in the context of kids awakening. I never got around to making a full video. Basically, it was just the idea that, you know, this could just be another awakening of a devil fruit. So all the various islands that we see, Raijin Island, Long Ring, Long Land, Punk Hazard, obviously being, you know, a result of these awakenings. And so which awakening is this? Now, what's very interesting about this is that somebody, I was amassing details for it to make an eventual video, but Drum Island, these could be the tops of Drum Island just sucked in. We don't know. This is a very interesting concept here that we're seeing, because like when you think about it, this could be like kids awakening. Just like he put something in the sky and everything got pulled towards it. So how much can we milk from One Piece? Oh wait, hold on. He's gonna conveniently miss my comment. Wait, how am I gonna miss your comment? Let's see what Dawn Knight said. Par might be one of the most gifted One Piece theorists of our time, but can he handle the heat from the last dab? I'm going to be getting the last dab, and we're gonna do that on stream, Dawn Knight. You did a good thing. We're gonna definitely get there. But thank you for the compliment. I'll ignore the first part and I'll focus on the last dab. I'll get the last dab. We'll do that for sure. My wife will definitely enjoy me devouring hot sauce, because that is her thing. And she says I'm not good with spice, but she recognizes I just don't like spicy food. But I can handle it. I always manage to come so late on these. Being a parent really sucks. I waste so much free time. Feel you, Don Knight. I feel you. What would you say has been one of Luffy's biggest struggles, Par? I would say being carrying the burden of creating freedom That is the biggest struggle, because when you look at Luffy, he doesn't want to be a hero. He doesn't want to involve himself in so many things. He just wants to be free. He wants to be the free person of the world, like the freest person, right? But the thing is, the caveat to freedom, and we see that with America and whatever, it's like freedom has a lot of strings attached to it. There's so many things to allow for freedom to exist. For freedom to exist, you have to have a system that's annoying, and laws and society and so many things. And Luffy's not that person, but he wants freedom. And so, you know, as he goes through the story, he's continuously faced with the facts that, like, he needs strength, he needs people, he needs science, he needs more people than himself. He realizes that for him to be the freest person, he needs a crew, he needs a family. And so, like, when you kind of think about it, right, like, is that real freedom to be reliant on people, to rely on a crew line? It's technically not, but, like, you know, there's certain things that you have to accept on the road to freedom. And I think that's what Luffy kind of has to, like, adopt to, right? Like, certain things he has to learn, strength. Like, I think one of the things is like in Nami's backstory. Okay. Van VTuber. Hold on. Thank you for the 10 gifted subs. Really appreciate that. I was surprised because you gave it to El Hersho, and El Hersho gifted subs. But that means that El Hersho didn't have subs himself, which is very funny. Appreciate the 10 gifted subs. But then also, did you choose the hearts on it? Because that's adorable. It's like Valentine's Day. I appreciate you. Thank you. Oh, and you got Shiver here too. Yo, shout outs to you. Thank you, Van VTuber. Thank you. Hopefully you're enjoying your time here. But what was I saying again with the free? Yeah, so there's a lot of things with freedom that Luffy has to, you know, realize that he has to learn. When we saw Nami's backstory, he's like, I don't care about backstory. I don't care about history, right? And then we see Fisherman Island, he kind of like slept through all the historical stuff. But it's like Jinbei says, like, to be a captain, you need to care about these things. But Luffy's never cared. But then we see on Dressrosa, he does listen to the story, right? When we see the Wano stuff, he's hearing the stories of these people, and he does care for them, right? Like the samurai stuff. Like, he's like, the samurais are cool. Like, we're fighting for the samurais, right? Don't slander the samurais, right? This is an instance of Luffy learning that these things do matter, right? The historical relevance to the people's situations do matter. That's a small growth in my opinion, right? Let me see. Jason, thank you. I think I shouted out the visionary thing before, but it showed up in the chat, so appreciate you there. I feel like I missed something. Van VTuber. Freedom isn't freedom, Dawn Knight says. At least the way we know it, especially Americans, true freedom is not feasible even in our world, is it? Luffy's dream is really tough to accomplish. Yep, so that is essentially my thing on that. And so Van VTuber message for the diehard people still here, congrats on 20k par, appreciate you. And that is exactly, thank you for all the people sticking around this far, and VinlanD's already gone and you guys are still here, so shout outs to you guys. Millie Flights, thank you for the sub on Twitch. Wow, and the follow. I was like, wait, you followed and sub, so new here. Welcome. Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm well overdue. So I'm at 80. Whoa, I'm at 88 subs. That is, I hit 1,000 followers on Twitch, which is huge, but I'm 88 subs, and that means I'm well overdue for the giveaway. So if you're not in the Discord, I would join the Discord. I'll do a merch giveaway because I'm. Oh wait, hold on. I uploaded a design, so it might be available now. Ooh, so maybe I'll do a giveaway for this shirt if it got accepted, please. Yeah, it's still under review, so maybe by tonight it'll be up. And then oh, Millie Flights, your Energy Empire on YouTube, got you. Par's using my merch designs. My wife is gonna redesign the one that you did, Rabbit Head. Yeah, so if you're not in the Discord, join the Discord. I'll do a giveaway on Discord for, I was supposed to do it for 50 subs, but I'm at 88, so that's I think I was supposed to do it for 100. What did I say? 75? I don't remember. Whatever it is, I'll do it. My last one was gifted and I kept going. Got you, Jason. Thank you. Appreciate it. Freedom is well defined. It's about having your basic rights. Yeah, I got you, Eduardo. But that being said, it's like having the system to enforce that allows people to have their basic rights is more important than the freedom itself, right? Because that's the important thing. We don't even have a system in our world that provides freedom to that extent, right? You can go across and look at all the examples of freedom in our world and still be like, that's not true freedom, right? That's probably not the freedom that Luffy, even Luffy says in the last thing, I want a world where all my friends can eat. Even America, we have that issue, right? Think about Flint, Michigan. They barely had water. Like, we don't even have that. Essentially, Orochi was in Flint, Michigan. So, let's see. Why do you see being a surprise? Oh, why do you see being a surprise enemy by the end? Evil Shanks is obviously popular, but are there any sneaky plot twists you feel it could happen? This man marked by burn scar could be one of the people. I think that is new. The God Knights are gonna be interesting because they're gonna be like fodder commanders. Dawn Knight says, if the stream reaches 1,000 likes, ParVision will do a knock-up stream from the hot tub. Honestly, if I can get to... Oh, God. If I can get to, like, 2,000 concurrent on a knock-up stream, then I'll do a hot tub stream. Or maybe I should say 50,000 subs. I'll do a hot tub stream for a knock-up stream. I'll do it. That's not a bad one. I just need to figure out a setup so I go to, like, a spa or something. I'll like rent out a thing. Get an Airbnb, yeah, something like that. 30-40 minutes. I'm 70 minutes behind. I said I was gonna be on stream for 30-40 minutes an hour and 15 minutes ago, so we're still here. No way. Now I'll do it for 50k subs. I think that's a solid thing, doing a knock-up stream from a hot tub, or it's one or the other. I guess whichever one happens first, right? Like 2,000 concurrent subs, concurrent viewers, and then likes, obviously. I would love that. That would be dope. What would I, for a knock-up stream? Yeah, we gotta do something hype like that, right? I mean, we already tried to rename this after part to Pillow Talk with Par, or Par's Pillow Talk, because after you get knocked up by Oda, we gotta have Pillow Talk. Or the thing is, in Oda's story, after the knock-up stream, it was the Milky Road. So, you know, we all know after you get knocked the Milky Road. If Shanks is Zebek's son, then logically akin to Luffy Ace, Buggy should be the inheritor of Zebek's will. Do you think Buggy will become the king of the world and sit? Yes. I don't even need all that explanation. He's definitely going to be sitting on that throne. Last dab? No, we're not doing last dab and a hot tub stream. I'm pretty sure that is on the warning label of both the hot tub and the last dab. Do not do each other at the same time. What would you say is Luffy's biggest burdens? Ooh, biggest burdens. I think in terms of freedom, Luffy's like the most burdenless character, but I think it's other people's dreams. But is it though? I don't know. So it's a hard question. I might have to actually think about that one, Void. Blackbeard got Rox's will. Yeah, it's hard to say because we don't know enough about Blackbeard, but we do know King of the World, and Buggy said he wanted to be God of the World, right? Or Pirate God. It's weird. He always pushes people to get their dreams, though. Yes, which, you know, is an obstacle towards his own dream, right? Did he need to liberate Arabasta? Did he need to liberate Dressrosa? No, he didn't need to, right? Technically, he could have just like ignored it, right? Damn, Par giving it all away. Start with like a face reveal or something first. Wait, wait. This is a face reveal. I have a face. It's here. I don't know. We'll see what hype comes out. The fruit told him to. Yo, Par, I got more puns like Moon Key. Devil in Devil Fruit sounds like D will, or oh, devil. So D will that would relate to the German thing, right? Because Shock Ville is Shock Willy or whatever. What's my favorite chapter cover? Chapter 234, I think. It's like Usopp swimming with whales. I really like that one. I like the Enel cover story. There's a lot of cover stories to like, not gonna lie. But yeah, all right, so we are closing in 7:50. I gotta go have dinner, and I gotta work on some videos. That being said, when I end the stream, it's gonna take you directly to that One Piece Talk, their channel, to their stream tomorrow. I'm gonna be in the studio with Mosh DMC, Larry, Sebastian, and Lawrence, and whoever else, Lionel also possibly. I'm not sure how many people are going to be there, but that One Piece Talk, Mosh, me, tomorrow at the studio. It's at 6 p.m. It's a 2-hour episode, and you guys can call in on the stream too. So definitely stay tuned for that. And then hopefully I'm gonna get a bunch of videos out this week, hopefully, because a lot of things, you know, fleshed out. Though this week is busier, so maybe after this week I can grind out more, but I'm gonna try my best. So thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you guys came in late, the VOD will be uploaded on my second channel. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, VinlanD. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. And I just want to shout out VinlanD again, because like we both are people that can just talk forever, but time is not something that's infinite. So hopefully in the future I might set up a more special time, like where, because I knew VinlanD had less time today for the episode, but he still stuck around for a long time. But next time I'll be like, yo, because last 2 Friday nights ago we talked for like 6 hours. If we can have another stream like that, that'd be wild. Just like a late night you know, conversation. It'd be great. So again, yeah, VinlanD was great. Thank you if you're a viewer of VinlanD's and you came in here and you're gonna watch the VOD, see his conversation. Just want to shout out VinlanD for coming on the channel, voice of all things. Definitely memorable. Definitely really appreciate it. Also Volume 1 podcast is posting a video tomorrow. So if you guys want to see me tease my theories to people who aren't caught up with the manga, so I teased the Shadows theory, the Elemental Haki theory, so many theories in a way that didn't spoil them, and they had a great time. So that is tomorrow too, so I'll link that on my channel. Wow, I have more collabs than I realized. Oh yeah, and the Marge next week, 10:57. But yeah, thank you guys again. Can't thank you guys enough. I really appreciate the time you guys spend with me. I need to just, yeah, really